Ready? Order. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the Public Bills Committee for March 25th, 2026 to order, and I'd like to welcome everyone to One Government Place. My name is Scott Armstrong, Minister of Justice and Attorney General. I'll be the chair for today's meeting. I'll ask each of the members of today's Law Amendments Committee to identify themselves, starting with the government members.
Tom Taggart, MLA for Colchester North.
Danny McGillivray, MLA for Pictou Centre.
Tim Outfit, MLA, Bedford Basin.
Julie Van Exen, MLA for King South.
Good morning, Derek Marquette, MLA for City Member 2.
Good morning, Kendra Coombs, MLA for Cape Breton Centre, Whitney Pier.
Good morning, I'm Krista Gallagher. I'm the MLA for Halifax, Chebucto.
I'll now ask members of Legislative Council to introduce themselves.
Gordon Hebb, Counsel to the Committee.
Killian Schlemmer, Counsel to the Committee.
To start, I'd like to address some housekeeping items. I'd ask everyone in the room, please turn off your phone or put it on silent. In case of emergency, please use the Granville Street exit and walk up to Grand Parade. I'll ask that everyone in attendance remain respectful to avoid indicating approval or disapproval of what is being said and to refrain from any disorderly behavior. Anyone exhibiting disorderly behavior may be asked to leave. Taking pictures or video of anyone in the room is restricted to accredited media. Finally, presenters may not use any props. The agenda today lists the order in which presenters will be provided to speak, and it is available for viewing at the front table here to my left. All presenters today were required to provide prior notification to the Legislative Office that they were speaking on the bill. We will proceed from that list. All submissions on a bill that were received via email until the time the bill was reported back to the House or in person during Law Amendments meeting will be given to the library staff and be posted online. Submissions received after a bill has been reported back to the House are distributed electronically to members of the committee but are not posted on the website. When your name is called, please come forward, state your name and how you would like the committee to address you and the organization, if any, that you represent. In order to allow all the scheduled presenters to speak, we'll be keeping track of time. Each presenter will receive a set amount of time to make your remarks, followed by answering any of the questions posed by committee members for up to 5 minutes. I will alert you when there's 1 minute left of your speaking time and when your time is up. Today, each presenter will be allotted 5 minutes, followed by 5 minutes of questions from MLAs. If presenters have handouts for the committee members, please hand them to the pages for distribution. Each committee member may ask one question at a time per presenter with no follow-up. If there's extra time afterwards, I will allow a second question. I'd like to remind presenters and committee members that you need to be recognized by the chair before you speak so that your mic is on and your comments will be captured. Today we'll be discussing Bill 198, the Financial Measures Act. And we'll now call upon our first presenter, Ned Zimmerman. Good morning. Thank you for coming in. Please state the name you'd like to be referred to, any organization you are representing, if any, and then they'll be followed by 5 minutes of presentation, followed by 5 minutes of questions from the MLAs. The floor is yours.
Thank you. My name is Ned Zimmerman, and I'm here to represent myself. I'm a resident of Dartmouth South. My father, Bill Zimmerman, would have liked to have been here. He died from COVID-19 a year and a half ago. He was an engineer, he was a theater artist, and he was an educator. He and my mother, Susan Hauer, emigrated to Queens County from the United States in 1973, bought land, and built a home there. That home on Great Island in Medway Harbor is where I was lucky enough to spend the first 4 years of my life. And over the last 2 years, I've had the pleasure of introducing my daughters to this remarkable place too. In 2010, our family placed Great Island under a conservation easement after years of work with the Nova Scotia Nature Trust to ensure that its forest, wetlands, and coastlines would be protected in perpetuity. This would mean that people could camp, hunt, fish, hike, and enjoy the island as my family has, as community members in Port Medway, Vogler's Cove, and surrounding communities have for centuries, and as Mi'kmaq people have for tens of thousands of years. Protecting Great Island represented the fulfillment of a decades-long dream for my parents. When my father's alma mater, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, invited him to speak about a career highlight in 2013, he did not choose to share anything from his working life, which spanned municipal politics in Wolfville, academia, energy policy, theater design, and freelance journalism. He chose instead to speak about our family's efforts to protect Great Island for future generations of Nova Scotians. Clause 54 of the Financial Measures Act, which we're discussing today, makes a significant change to conservation easements, even those that are supposed to exist in perpetuity under the terms of the Conservation Easements Act of 2001. Namely, a conservation easement can be terminated if a property owner successfully argues that the easement represents a severe hardship for them. Who does this benefit? It benefits those who, having knowingly acquired property that is protected by a conservation easement, decide that it would be more profitable to them if it were not so protected. As others have argued over the past 2 days of this committee, this amendment completely undermines the Conservation Easements Act and the efforts of those who work in good faith to protect wilderness in this province. I must say this plainly. This is an insult to my father's memory. He worked hard to ensure that Great Island would be protected in perpetuity for all Nova Scotians after his death, and the changes in Bill 198 betray the trust he placed in legal frameworks of land conservation established, I might add, by a previous progressive conservative government. As a co-owner of Great Island, I also believed that it would be protected forever, whether it stays in our family or not, and I'm frankly heartbroken that its protection is being jeopardized by this bill. Now, I have heard reports that the government might be open to changing its mind on this, but I've heard next to nothing from committee members from the government over the last few days. Well, my parents lived year-round on Great Island from 1973 to 1989. They operated an informal artist in residency program there. Their first guest was internationally renowned Nova Scotian landscape painter and printmaker Roger Savage, who showed up out of the fog in a rowboat one day and spent a few weeks painting along the coast. During those 15 years, they hosted painters, writers, photographers, and once an entire theater company. In 2016, my partner Faith Wiley and I started the Great Island Arts Co-op, which hosted artists in residence on Great Island through 2019. Some were supported by grants from Arts Nova Scotia, which has had its funding slashed in this government's budget, with grants to individual small groups and organizations being cut by 30%. The COVID-19 pandemic and our decision to start a family put an end to the residency for the foreseeable future, but had we kept it going, we would have been relying on those same programs to keep its operations sustainable. I can share some numbers about what our small volunteer-run residency accomplished during its time. In 4 years, we brought 24 artists in residence to the South Shore. These artists found themselves transformed and inspired by their experiences on Great Island. In fact, one trio of artists in residence, the band Mabel, wrote many of the songs for their debut album, Gathering, during their 2-week stay. If you want to talk about economic impact, they also visited local cafes, restaurants, shopped, and did laundry in Bridgewater. But significantly, they were drawn to the residency in the first place because it was in a remote, protected wilderness area. I believe that we will miss our forests, our coastlines, our lakes, and our rivers if we allow their protections to be stripped away by Bill 198 and by the regressive, destructive resource extraction agenda that this government is advancing. We will also miss the contributions of arts and culture to our communities if the sector continues to be systematically defunded. Artists have a real impact on this province, and an impact that can be felt here and now, not just in our GDP, but in the ways that they enrich our daily lives. I've been inspired by the courage and passion of others who have spoken before this committee over the past 2 days, but I've been frankly dismayed by the lack of engagement of government committee members. My dad was a theater artist, but he was educated as a scientist, and he taught me something important about the scientific method when I was very young. Scientific theory, he reminded me, is designed to be disproven. Good scientists don't cling to outdated understandings of the world when they learn new things. The same goes for politicians. It's okay to change your mind. Show us your courage. Thank you.
Thank you, Ned. First we have, we now have 5 minutes, up to 5 minutes for questions, and up first is MLA Coombs.
Thank you, and thank you, Ned, for your beautiful presentation and giving us the honor to know your father a little bit. Can you tell us more about how sections of the FMA, including the conservation easements, affect not only just your family, but the environment that wilderness that you are trying to protect as a whole, what that means.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it will be recognized by the chair.
You do, and thank you. I recognize Mr. Zimmerman.
Thank you. Yes, well, I think there's a very clear line that's drawn by the current Conservation Easements Act, which is that if an easement is enacted on a property in perpetuity, so the Easements Act specifies, I looked this up, Clause 5, I believe, says that easements can be enacted for a specific period of time or in perpetuity. Now, if an easement is acted in perpetuity, it's what it says on the tin. You can't undo that easement as long as the legal framework exists that maintains those easements. What this change would do is it would say, well, no, in perpetuity doesn't actually mean in perpetuity. It means in perpetuity until an owner of the property decides that they're not happy with it anymore. And so what that means is if our family, for financial reasons or any other reasons, decided to sell this property, and we're very privileged to own a piece of wilderness in Nova Scotia, we could not be guaranteed that the subsequent owner would decide, oh, well, I'd actually like to subdivide this, build a bunch of houses on it, mine it, forest, log it, whatever. Those things would be on the table now as long as they were able to argue that it was causing them economic hardship, that there was this perpetual easement. And so I think conservation easements that can be undone by an argument from a property owner have no force, as far as I can tell. If it's there, it needs to have legal force. And if it doesn't have legal force, if that legal force can be overturned on someone's preference, then what is the value of a conservation easement? So this impacts us because if we were to decide to sell Great Island, we have no assurances that the subsequent owner would protect the wilderness there. We also have seen from other presenters to this committee that people who are thinking about putting their land under conservation easements might hesitate to do so because they don't feel that it provides real protection. And so I think that jeopardizes the conservation goals for wilderness areas in Nova Scotia, and it puts existing easements in jeopardy as well. Thanks.
MLA Gallagher.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for coming today, Ned. I don't have a question for you. I just wanted to thank you for coming. I think we're all a little tired at the table today, and when I get tired, I get emotional. And picturing Roger Savage in a rowboat coming through the fog made me a little emotional. So thank you for coming. I am also worried about this clause, and I've been actively advocating for the Farmland Trust. I'm worried about farmland and community easements. So I just wanted to say thank you, and thank you, Chair.
MLA Mumbercut.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for being here. As a Cape Bretoner, we live on a beautiful island, and as you said, what an honor it is for you to own a piece of our beautiful forest in Nova Scotia. So we've heard from Nova Scotians who've come from all over to talk about this bill and the particular clauses that you're talking about. I don't have a question, but I just want to show the respect. Thank you for coming in, and your story was wonderful. Thank you.
Did you want to respond, Mr. Zimmerman? Or?
Sure. I'm glad I cut it because I'd understood that I'd have 10 minutes and it's been reduced to 5 today. But I did mention something in my original notes about one of the other conservation easements that was put in place by someone who's no longer with us, the Canadian author Farley Mowat and his wife Claire. They protected 200 acres along the coast of Cape Breton in 2007. And that was one of the first large conservation easements that was put in place under this framework. And so I think it's important to think about what decisions today do to the legacies of people who have tried to do right by the province, do right by its wilderness areas, and people like my dad, people like the Mowat family, and others who I could name have been in a position where they're privileged enough to be able to protect wildland, and it's incumbent upon this government and future governments to keep that commitment that they made and keep that trust. Thank you.
And that's our time. Thank you very much for being here this morning. All right, our next witness is Audra Williams, and I believe she's going to be virtual. And I see her. Good morning. Can you hear us? No.
Good morning. I can hear you. I was muted.
And we can hear you now. So that's great. How do you wish to be addressed, Audra? And is Audra or Ms. Williams or?
No, Audra's fine.
Audra's fine. And
Yeah.
are you representing yourself or any group or?
Just myself. I'm a small business owner.
All right. Well, nice to see you, and you have 5 minutes.
Perfect. So yes, my name's Audra Williams. I'm a small business owner in Port Medway, Queens County, and I'm here to speak on the Financial Measures Act. I have broader concerns about the budget, certainly, but within the narrower scope of this bill, the government's priorities are still clear. My husband and I run Rosefinch Mercantile and Tea Room, where we try to do more than serve food. There's a community garden in the backyard. Students hang their art on our walls. Residents from a seniors home come in for sing-alongs. Neurodiverse youth get relevant work experience here. We hosted the area's first queer prom. And we created this space specifically to keep people from falling through the cracks. And I'm speaking here today because we feel a deep responsibility to keep those cracks from growing. I want to speak to 3 provisions in this bill because together they tell a story about what this government is choosing to do and who it's choosing to protect. The first is the Meat Inspection Act amendments. We serve food to the public, and a significant portion of the people who come through our door are older adults. A foodborne illness that a younger person weathers in a few days can put an elderly person in the hospital. And until now, consumers and businesses in Nova Scotia had the right to purchase inspected meat. That sounds so reasonable. But this bill changes that to the right to purchase meat that is from a licensed meat plant. This is a meaningful difference. Inspected means an independent person verified it. Licensed means the facility has a permit. The bill then goes further. It introduces authorized meat plant representatives employed by the facilities themselves to carry out functions that were previously the responsibility of independent inspectors. This is a facility being asked to vouch for itself. In food service, trust is everything. I can't independently inspect every supply chain myself, and neither can my customers. That's why the public system matters. The federal government has already cut CFIA inspection positions, explicitly citing provincial capacity as a justification. This is a moment for increased investment in this area, but instead this bill weakens the systems that people rely on to know their food is actually safe. Why is this government willing to take this risk with people's lives? The second provision I'd like to speak to is the Gaming Control Act amendments. Fun fact, registered charities in Nova Scotia can apply for deed transfer tax exemptions, but only if the property isn't used for commercial purposes. Less fun fact, in my estimation, this bill extends that same exemption to casinos, one of the most commercial operations imaginable. In addition, it exempts casinos from a number of municipal planning requirements, permits, and zoning processes that other projects are expected to navigate. Small businesses like mine, not-for-profits, community spaces are expected to follow rules, pay fees, justify every inch of what we do, but casinos apparently are not. And so why is this government clearing the path for casinos? The third provision is the new levy on electric and hybrid vehicles. This bill creates a new biennial charge of $500 for electric vehicles and $250 for hybrids. In a coastal community like mine, climate change is not theoretical. People here are already thinking about storms, instability, and what kind of future is being left for the next generation. This bill makes cleaner transportation more expensive at the very moment we should be making these choices easier. Why is this government putting a new cost on lower emission choices? Taken together, these 3 provisions in the Financial Measures Act all point in the same direction: less oversight of food safety, tax relief for casinos, penalties for climate responsibility. This is a pattern, and it's worth naming, because the Financial Measures Act is also a statement of values. It reflects what a government thinks needs protecting and what it thinks can absorb more risk. In a business in a village like ours, 200 people, there's very little margin for that risk. So my ask is simple. Before this bill proceeds further, refer these provisions for further study so their impacts on public safety, trust, fairness, and accountability can be properly examined. Because the choices in this bill are not neutral. They shift risk, they shift responsibility, and they affect the systems people rely on every day. These are not technical choices to the people who have to live with them. Thank you for your time.
Michael, thank you very much. Just for clarification, the last couple of days, and this has nothing to do with you, the last couple of days we've heard comments about the casino. And I've asked the government to clarify this. The casino is paying deed transfer tax on their property that they're purchasing in Dartmouth. What we did was accept that the land's actually coming back to us, and we are making ourselves GST. We don't have to pay the GST on it when we take it back over. So there is no policy, and this will be clarified through better communication than me, I hope, that there is not an exemption, and I'm going to add lots of time to you, but there is no exemption for casinos proposed in this, and they are paying the deed transfer tax in their new property in Dartmouth. All right, so we have time now for questions, and starting with MLA Gallagher.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that explanation. Hi, Audra. Thanks for your work in the small business world. I want to ask about the Meat Inspection Act, actually. Now, we do have the highest standards in the country, which I think is amazing. But it does feel as though we are shifting the risks in this bill, in the Meat Inspection Act, to the shoulders of small businesses. And so I want to ask you what that shift in risk, if this bill is passed as is, may look like for your food service business.
I recognize Audra.
Oh, yeah, it's just very concerning. I've been following quite closely the cuts to CFIA, and I know that there are currently like thousands of plants that have never been inspected, and the idea that we're going to reduce that further, I find quite chilling. We, like I said, we have an older population here, but we also have kids that come in, and we have to have our water tested to prove that it's safe, and we have to follow. And we're pleased to follow, of course, a lot of safety guidelines ourselves. And so, but we don't have we just have to be able to trust that if we buy meat, that it's not going to make anybody sick if we serve it. And I don't know, we just feel a lot of concern for our customers at all times. And, in this, we're also the town post office, we're, like I said, it's a quite small village, we know everybody quite closely. And, I would just hate to be handing over a sandwich to somebody without knowing that it was going to be safe for them to eat. And a lot of, people's health can be quite delicate. And so it's just, I don't know how we can guarantee that safety to these customers that we care about so much, unless we can keep maintaining these high standards. Because right now, as you said, it's great to be able to serve people things and be this is all going to keep you safe. And so having that uncertainty, I don't know, it's alarming.
I recognize MLA Coombs.
Thank you, and thank you for presenting today. You mentioned being from a coastal area, and as a Cape Bretoner, I get this. We are on the front lines of the environmental changes and especially our coastal erosion. And I'm wondering, within the provisions that you discussed, there does seem to be a penalty for people trying to do the right thing by the environment. How do you think that will affect not only yourself as a small business owner in a coastal area, but going forward, that the environment does not seem to be well protected under this government, under this FMA?
I recognize Audra, please.
So sorry. It's very concerning, absolutely. And, we do deal with flooding here. We also deal with our well going dry. We also had, wildfire smoke, in the air. And all of these things, they make it also harder for us to get insurance. We've had to change insurance providers a few times since we got this building, because we're being told that, we're too close to the water. like insurance companies are just divesting themselves of buildings as old as ours. It was built in 1850 that are a certain proximity to water, and we're near the Medway River here, and then of course the harbor. So it puts us in a really real risk. And, I don't know what happens if there's some year that we can't find a company that will insure us, or, if the well goes dry longer term, or, my husband and I both have bronchitis, asthma issues, like not being able to literally go outside to get the ingredients we need to keep this business going because the air doesn't feel safe to breathe. And so all of those impacts are so real. And even from, like it's very specific, but like an archaeological and storytelling perspective, I've spoken with archaeologists who say that coastal erosion is losing us sort of thousands of years of history, every time another chunk of land goes underwater. And so I don't know, I think that it changes everything. And like I said, like we are in a small place, we don't have a lot of margin of error. And so every little thing that creates more peril risks us not being able to operate what we think is a pretty crucial public service, with the post office and the grocery store, and being, the only accessible building in town.
Audra, our time is up. And I want to thank you very much for your presentation, and we wish you and your business great success.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Cheers. All right, next on our list we have Hannah. Is Hannah here? There's Hannah. I won't attempt your last name until you educate me. With a last name like mine, I'm used to it. So, good morning and welcome. And please let us know how you wish to be addressed. And if you're representing yourself or an organization as well, then you'll have up to 5 minutes to speak and up to 5 minutes for questions. So, welcome.
Thank you very much. So my name is Hannah Saroui, or Saroui, easier. Thank you very much for having me here. I am representing myself as a citizen. So I am a 10th generation Nova Scotian. I come from a family of artists and musicians. I love my home, Nova Scotia, but the changes that are being proposed in the Financial Measures Act make me fear that all of the things I love about my home are at risk of being destroyed. I am appalled at the choices being made by this government. The Premier is truly not prioritizing individual Nova Scotians and families. These proposed budget cuts obviously most benefit the rich. Growing up here, I have seen how hardworking Nova Scotians are, and in spite of that, how many of us struggle just to survive day to day. We are doing the best we can, and we deserve to have our government do the best they can to help support us. It is clear from these proposed cuts that our government has no idea how much support our communities are already lacking. Art, community, and culture is preventative health care. Premier Houston claims to be interested in trying to improve life for Nova Scotians, but these cuts literally do the opposite. It's not a question of whether. These cuts will lead to more addiction, crime, abuse, racism, poverty, and trauma in our communities. It's not a government handout if it's our money in the first place. It should be spent on the things that we need. And nobody should get to have seconds until everybody has had a plate. I have become aware of gross mismanagement of my tax dollars by Premier Houston. One example, seen in Part 7, Clause 64 of the Act, is the elimination of all of the revenue from the Halifax-Dartmouth bridge tolls. I live in Dartmouth and have always been happy to pay the bridge tolls because I knew they were keeping the bridges working for us all. On top of that is the 1% cut to HST. How is it that we are actively cutting revenue streams and then at the same time being told that we can't afford to continue to fund existing programs and supports? If we can't afford to do away with the 1% HST and the bridge tolls without also sacrificing these programs and services, then we simply cannot afford to cut these revenue streams. Personally, I would be willing to pay an additional 1% HST on top of the 1% that was cut if it means that we can get more public funding for the services and organizations that support Nova Scotians. The Premier's actions have shown me where his priorities truly lie. I was shocked to learn that there are corporations that are being permitted to extract huge amounts of water from Nova Scotian aquifers to use for their own wealth, but are only being charged a permit fee of less than $300 per year. This allows millions of liters of fresh drinking water to be siphoned away for the benefit of a corporation's bottom line, and we are literally giving it away. Why is the arts and culture sector of Nova Scotia being asked to pay when these corporations have been getting a free ride at our expense? Not to mention at the expense of our environment. Especially after the water shortages of last summer that severely impacted all of us, we should be taking a serious look at how we are using our province's natural resources. I'm honestly scared to death about these cuts. Once these programs and services are gone, they are gone. It takes moments to destroy what has taken generations of hardworking Nova Scotians to build. Luckily, we do not live in a dictatorship. We live in a democracy. I implore the MLAs to use their own hearts and minds to make the right decision for their communities and vote no to these cruel and harmful cuts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now have questions starting with MLA Coombs, please.
Hi, and thank you for your presentation. I don't know if you've done this before, but you did a beautiful job. Can you do it? Is there anything would you mind expanding on a little bit more of how you see the FMA as it's presented right now, especially with some of those cuts that you mentioned that are in the FMA, and how you see those cuts affecting the health, the economy of and the economy of Nova Scotia, as well as yourself personally.
I recognize. I was going to start with Ms. Sarwi. Did I get it?
That's
All
good
right.
enough. Thank you. So the question: how will these cuts affect? How do I see them affecting Nova Scotia and our communities, and myself, and our health and well-being? Yes. So, from the way I can see, people need to have things to do with their lives other than working, you know? I mean, even after work, you come home and you watch a TV show to wind down and relax. Well, that is art, you know? Like, it's not just, but it's not just that. It's also about how people can spend their energy. Like, we want to live lives that are meaningful and matter to us more than just going in, clocking in and out and earning a paycheck and putting food in our mouths. Like, there's more to life than just that. And specifically talking about the way it impacts health, mental health in particular, I would say a huge amount of mental health can be, my words are not coming to me very easily right now, but it is so true that having community supports, having ways to express yourself is so important. Like, if you have no way to express yourself, if you have no outlet, then mental health issues that you're struggling with just fester, and it's just as good as therapy. Like, art is therapy, you know? Like, how do I explain this?
No, I think you're doing well.
Okay, great.
I'd like to get to some other questions.
Sure, let's ask some other questions.
Are you okay with that? Next is MLA Taggart, and then Mumbercat.
Nope, they put me on first. Tom's first.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks very much for your presentation. There's no question it's very passionate, and I certainly appreciate you coming in. I do want to ask a question about your comments about the 1% on the HST, and the way I kind of want to frame this, which I have done with many of my constituents at home who've kind of contacted us over the last little bit. So I guess what I want to ask you is where is your thoughts on this? So, 1% on the HST doesn't really, like at this point, I actually am honored and privileged to be in the position I'm in. But I raised 3 children and a stay-at-home mom, and I know the financial position that we spent a lot of years in, living day to day, paycheck to paycheck. And 1% or even the 2%, because you said you'd be happy to pay an extra %. I understand your position because you have your passion for your arts and that sort of thing. But where does that fit, with the young family that's living day to day to put food on the table and clothes and transportation, all those things? There's not a lot of spare change there. So I just kind of wonder what your thoughts are on that.
I recognize Ms. Sarway, please.
Yes, thank you. I'm so happy to answer that question. Really happy you asked me that actually. So that's the whole point of taxes. Like, taxes are for the benefit of us all. Like, if you give back 1% or 2% tax to a family, that doesn't mean they're going to have enough money to pay for like a year of daycare for their children. Like, that's a very limited amount of money that one family can do with that small percentage amount. But if everybody contributes a certain percentage amount of their income, then everybody has a big pool of money that can be used by the whole community, the people who need the services have access to them. What is happening now is that people need the services. The community funding is so limited that if they can get in the services, they're lucky. If they can't, they literally just don't get the service. Like, those are the choices. Like, if you take away the funding of the arts, it's not going to be that the people take their 1% that they got back and use it to funnel into the arts and restore everything that was cut. That's not how it's going to work. It's not possible. It's literally not possible for a human family individually to take a 1% amount of money that they got back from the government and use it to create all of these fundings and programs that we have in place. It doesn't work.
Our time is up. Thank you very much for being here today.
Appreciate
Best
it.
wishes. All right, next on our list in person is Maureen Dunn. Maureen, please welcome, first of all, and secondly, please introduce yourself, how you wish me to refer to you, and if you're representing any group or just yourself, and welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, you can call me Maureen. I use she, her pronouns. I am the president of the Kodai Society of Nova Scotia and the president of the Kodai Society of Canada presently. That is an organization that supports music educators in promoting quality music education. We have affiliates around the globe, and indeed Halifax was an early adopter of this philosophy in the 1960s and 70s under amazing leadership of people like Kay Potty and Chalmers Doan and Reet Vink, who worked really, really hard with all levels of government and different universities to kind of put the roots down for this philosophy. It was so successful that people would come from around Canada, across North America, and indeed as far away as Iceland to see the success in the schools. I'm happy to say that despite decades of threat of cuts, this philosophy is still embedded in our curriculum from primary to 6 in the Department of Education Early Childhood Development curriculum. However, I'm not here to speak on behalf of the Kodai Society of Nova Scotia. I'm here as a concerned citizen. I'm a constituent of Chester, St. Margaret's Bay. I just retired from a 34-year career as an elementary music teacher. My husband has a 40-plus year successful and very rewarding career in the music industry as a full-time employed musician. My husband and I are deeply informed by the world around us through our 18-year-old son who just graduated from high school, and I invite you to hear the words that I'm about to present this morning through that lens, because it's because of him and his cohort and all the youth that come after him that motivate me to sit here right now. Chairman Outed, I think, today.
You can just call me Tim, that's fine.
Okay,
yes.
All right. Tim and all the committee members.
Chairman makes me sound communist.
Well, you know. Listen, thank you. Thank you for allowing me the time to speak. I am speaking on my comments on Bill 198. Due to the fact that there are so many legislative amendments, my comments will be organized in chronological order. I am going to breeze through the first few because I think by now you're familiar with the clauses and the concerns of which. So I want to get to the end in my 5 minutes. Clause 54, the Conservation Easements Act, in a nutshell, in order to maintain a responsible and transparent government, it is imperative that the phrases severe hardship and simplify the process be clearly defined before acceptance of these amendments. Thoughtful work is definitely still required on Clause 54. Clause 56, the Crown Lands Act, less oversight for timber licenses on public lands at a time when there no longer exists a wildlife division is a clear example of mismanagement of forest resources. Clause 56 should be removed. Clause 58, Crown Lands Act, until such time, and this is the one about a conservation officer being able to impound a vehicle, until such time that regular and sincere discussions take place between the provincial government and the Mi'kmaq regarding natural resource development, one of the only tools left in the communication toolbox is to protest, not unlike recent action that has taken place regarding the Defending Nova Scotia 2026 budget with thousands of Nova Scotians across the province. The amendments to Chapter 114, which further inhibit the democratic right to protest, is abhorrent and yet another example of the erosion of personal voice here in Nova Scotia. Like many of the cuts to grants and programs contained in this proposed budget, this amendment seems to directly target Mi'kmaq communities. "We are all treaty people" is not a hollow phrase to be used as a soundbite, but one that is a foundational concept between all peoples of Canada, Indigenous and non-Indigenous alike. Current Nova Scotia government action reveals just how shallow a commitment it has to this promise. Clause 58 should be removed. Clause 64, the Halifax-Dartmouth Bridge Commission Dissolution Act. I have so many questions about this. Why now choose to dissolve a 75-year-old independent Crown corporation such as the Halifax-Dartmouth Bridge Commission? The removal of the current board made up of HRM councillors and community members, and the absorption into Link Nova Scotia removes a vital layer of political oversight. The highest level of scrutiny is essential if mistakes from the past, such as the disgraceful treatment of the residents of Africville during the choosing of the original A. Murray McKay Bridge build site, are not to be repeated in choosing a possible new location in the coming years. Further, explain to me the thought process that was decided to add $300 million to the provincial debt by taking over full responsibility of these bridges. To compound this financial hardship, the $260 million in lost annual revenue and making decisions such as lowering that HST by 1%, further deepening our debt, simply boggles my mind. In response to concerns over the elimination of long-standing programs such as Artists in the Schools and Artists in the Communities, among many impactful yet seemingly random chosen budget lines, I have been repeatedly told by the government, when we can do more, we will do more. Public Bills Committee, it is extremely difficult to accept this rationale, knowing the decisions of fiscal mismanagement outlined above are taking place, often outside of the voted upon provincial budget through additional appropriations. Clause 64 should be removed. Clauses 105 to 108, Provincial Parks Act, as a protected area related...
30 seconds.
Legislation, the Minister of Natural Resources wields much power over this. Knowing the Minister of Energy's stance on wanting to turn Nova Scotia into an energy superpower, which I got off the website, acts as a Provincial Parks Act lay vulnerable to exploitation via ambiguities. Listen, I want to end by saying that I join fellow Nova Scotians in asking this government to terminate their practice of amending dozens of legislation in one omnibus bill. Trust between the government and citizens whom they work for is on shaky ground as it is. Speeding up the legislative process in this way reduces accountability and limits debate. Willful dismissal of these foundations of our democratic process, along with the concerns raised above,
our time is up.
Is hacking away at the public's trust in the current government really does care for its citizens. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You brought back fond memories. Chalmers tried to teach me the uke, and Kay tried to teach me to sing, but wonderful memories. First of all, now we have MLA Coombs. We have up to 5 minutes for questions, so go ahead, starting with MLA Coombs.
Thank you. I'm going to be quick here. First, we used to be, back in the old days, we used to give the presenters the choice, either they want questions or they want to take their whole time. That's changed, I guess, now. But I want to give you time, because I know you rushed through this presentation, to provide more information that you have there to us.
I recognize Maureen.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. I'll try to speak from my heart here and not get too emotional. I would like to join my voice with the amazing other Nova Scotians I've been watching over the last 2 days. I'm going to mention a few: Michelle Paul, Bernadette Hamilton-Reid, Kenny Fitzpatrick, Angela Bowden, Jay Roy, Laurie Morton yesterday, Audra and Hannah, who I heard today, and Dr. Megan Hansford mentioned yesterday. She quoted Dr. Bayo Akoma Lafe, "The times are urgent, let us slow down." That really resonated with me. I looked it up a little more, and it talked about pausing amidst global crisis to avoid reckless, frantic reactions that mirror the problems themselves. And I can't help but think that in the last, 14 months since the new administration took place in Washington, that there's been like this reckless turn that all of a sudden we have to pour all of our time into money into multi-million-dollar foreign-owned companies, to hack at the forests and plow the lands down for resource extraction. I also share Dr. Hansford's concern about the process and pace of this budget, and the fact that Premier Houston is prioritizing his time being away this entire week at a time when we have very real, deep-seated concerns by his constituents, and this province disturbs me. And he wasn't here either. A couple of weeks ago, he was in Ontario when we were raising our initial concerns. And look who's left holding the bag. His MLAs are here to speak, or to not speak, as it turns out. I know everyone here has a heart. You wouldn't be in this job if you didn't. I ask you to examine your conscience, to really listen to our hearts. Every person speaking here wants you to use your own voice and vote, I'm sure, no to this bill or to the budget for sure. I want to put a human face. I mentioned our son. He is part of the queer community, and he has had, not just because he's part of the queer community, it's been amazing, but he has some physical challenges as well. And I am telling you this right now as I sit here, his involvement in the arts and culture have been a lifeline for him to flourishing. It has given him a place to belong, a place for understanding. The fact that he creates art and makes music, they are his medicine for him. And interacting with the natural beauty of this province, along with the arts and culture, has played a vital role in his daily sense of contentment and worth in this world. And I speak again on his behalf and all of those youth and that come after him to maintain this, please.
I recognize MLA Moonbriket.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your presentation. It was wonderful. I don't have a question, but we've heard multiple people talk about this, and it's part of the act, and it's something that we've been outspoken about. It's the bridge tolls. It's the fact that nobody asked for that to be done. And you're absolutely right. It put $300 million immediately on the bottom line of the province. It gave up $35+ million a year in revenue, which was helped to maintain the bridge. Also, what people don't talk, there was millions of dollars written off because they bought new technology that was going to be used. So the reason why I say all of this is that we're all sitting here having a conversation about money to support the arts, or you're seeing all of the cuts, and whether you agree with the bridge tolls or not, which we haven't had a presenter that has agreed with removing those tolls yet. Whether you agree or not, as a government, you make projections and you make decisions based on the revenue that you have and the programs and the services that you want to provide to people. And this decision for me has been one of the biggest ones where I just don't get it. I just don't understand at this point right now. Eventually down the road, if the government wanted to remove the tolls, sure, you phase that in, but you do that based on projections, knowing that you're not giving up your revenue streams that are going to impact programs that support Nova Scotians. So I used to be in music when I was a kid. My mother sang and step danced and did all the things in Cape Breton, and I was surrounded by some really lovely artists myself. My two daughters, very much artists, their foundation, that is their medicine, that is their escape. And I really appreciate you telling your story, and I wish your family and your son all the love and success. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Our time is up, but thank you for just coming here this morning. We're going to take a 5-minute recess. Thank you. I think we're good to go. And order. Yeah. All right, next on our list, we have Victoria Levesque, who I know more as Vicky when she used to appeal at City Hall.
Yes.
Nice to see you again. And Vicky, you have up to 5 minutes to talk with us, and then we have questions afterwards. Do you want to be called Victoria or Vicky? Or
Vicky is fine.
Vicky is good? All right. Vicky, go ahead. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Hi, guys. My name is Vicky. I'm here to speak to the Clauses in the Financial Measures Act, clause number 64, I believe, which is the dissolution of the Dartmouth-Halifax Bridge Commission, as well as the clause that relates to giving a tax exemption to the moving expenses of the casino. Because, as I could explain what I consider to be some very basic economics. Now, I'm not a scholar about economics, but even I know that if you eliminate a revenue stream and you don't have anything to replace it, you're going to have less money for services. This is, of course, not good because those services help the most vulnerable people in this province engage in full, rich, active lives, and nobody asked for this. And I think it's important to remember that your job as public servants is to listen to your constituents and the people of this province. It's not to do what one man thinks you should. And if people agreed with these clauses and these actions, I would not be here today. However, it's very clear to me that we do not, as a collective, agree with these cuts. So I am not the only one. We made that very clear in front of the legislature a couple weeks ago, which is our democratic right. What these protests do is they allow the unheard to be heard. If the unheard felt like they were being listened to, they wouldn't just stand in the cold beating drums and yelling. We would much rather be creating positive art. But if you take away these things, people won't be able to do that. And art is what makes life worth living. It's what breathes life into this province. It is our greatest tax revenue. And to get rid of it doesn't make any sense, like just logically to me. One thing I've noticed that other people have not brought up is the fact that art is one of the greatest ways to speak truth to power in a very positive and impactful way. By eliminating the pots of money that then feed into those services and those wonderful organizations, you're limiting people's who are a minority whose stories may not be told. You're making it harder for them to tell those stories and speak truth to power, which seems a little more right-wing than I would like. And I believe that this was an unforeseen consequence of these cuts. I am not insinuating that silencing the public was the point of these cuts. However, it can be used that way, and that's dangerous. And I, for one, think we should give marginalized people more of a voice because they have collective knowledge, not less. The 1% tax cut to the HST allowed the richest people to save the most money, not the ones who are struggling paycheck to paycheck. It more benefited the upper class. And this budget, if we take away the funding streams for certain things, we have to replace it with something. No, one thing this government did that was positive was when it realized, cutting the disability services budget. They were not ready to do that because the other pots of money and funding streams were not yet operational. They reversed course because they realized what they did was incorrect. This was a good thing, obviously, because when we get it wrong, we just say so and reverse course. Eliminating the bridge tolls and cutting other sources of government revenue in a time when we need art to express ourselves more than ever in a changing landscape was not the right move. So, and the people you represent have told you as such. So, in my opinion, it's not about your personal beliefs. It's about what people want. And what your people have said loud and clear over the last couple of weeks is that we do not agree with this current course of actions. I would also like to say that having an omnibus bill like this is deeply undemocratic. I myself was raised by a military man who had a deep love of democracy, and seeing it undermined like this breaks his heart as well as my own. So
your time is up, Vicki. I did give you a little extra time.
Thank
Just
you. I
wrap it up.
appreciate that. I look forward to questions.
Thank you very much. First question is from MLA Coombs.
Hey, Vicki. It's great to see you here, as always. I always enjoy our conversations. Vicki, you mentioned the cuts that are made in the FMA and how these cuts could have gone to funding the art. You also mentioned some of the disability supports programs, not all, have seen some have been rescinded, let's say. What would you say about but the Arts Equity Funding Initiative was not pushed back, which helps people with disabilities. And I'm wondering, with regards to the cuts that were made in the cuts that are made in the FMA through the Bridge Commission and the tolls through the D-transfer and others, where we're seeing tax cuts. How do you think that, like, if we were to reinstate some of those cuts that were, like, some of the tax cuts that were made, that we could fund these programs, especially for people with disabilities?
Recognize Vicki.
Thank you. We could certainly fund more of them. I know that we may not be able to reinstate all funding because I don't know how much money is needed. There are people who know that much better than I. But we could definitely do more if we had more. I think that's basic math. And I think we owe it as part of the remedy to allow disabled people to tell their stories and to help them tell their stories in whatever way they need help.
Recognize MLA Mumberkett.
Hi, Vicki. Thanks for good to see you. Good to see you again. Always, yeah. I want to just say thank you for coming in, and I want to thank you for your advocacy, because I think it was a big part of why the government changed their mind on some things. And you make a very valid point: is that we've seen the government reverse course on important programs to support people in our community. Your voice was a big part of that, and coming here today to support the arts is very important. It's people's, it's folks' way to express who they are and the stories of our province. So I just want to say thank you, and it was good to see you again, and thank you for your voice in the last number of weeks. It made a big difference.
I don't see any other questions. Oh, okay. MLA Coombs.
Thank you. Vicki, the one thing I think I will ask is if there's anything else that you would like to say to the committee. I want to give you that space to do that now.
Recognize Vicki.
Sorry. The last thing I would say is think about what makes this province what it is. It's not the condo buildings or the, big fortune companies. It's the small businesses. It is our artists. It is the people of this province who help create a community and belonging for people with various marginalized groups. I know the arts have saved my life. Without art, I wouldn't be able to express myself the way I am. I would never be able to do this job without the training and support and love that the arts community gave me and continues to give me every single day. And I think, lastly, I know you guys don't like singing, so I'll just say it. It's okay to change your mind. It may take some courage and be scary, but you can join us at any time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vicki. Always learn something from you. And I love singing just at the right time and place. I'm not saying I'm good at it. Thank you very much. Good to see you. All right. Next, we have in person, I believe, Brian Carson. Brian, come on up. Good morning. Welcome. Please introduce yourself, indicate how you'd like me to refer to you, and let me know if you're speaking for yourself or an organization.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. So I'm Brian Carson. I am speaking on just behalf of myself as a citizen of this province. I'm a son, I'm a brother, I'm a father, a lifetime resident of Nova Scotia for almost 46 years. Coming up quick. I'm a lifelong musician.
Tell me about it.
Right? I'm a lifelong musician as well. I play bass. I've had the fortune of studying, not post-grad, but in university as well. So such a huge benefit for my life. I'm also a proud member of the Dartmouth community. I love that place. It's just such a vibrant and wonderful place to be. And I also want to point out that my family on both sides came here as settlers to this land. So when I speak, it's from that perspective. When I first called to book this time to speak, I was told that if I didn't have a section to speak on in the bill, that I couldn't do it. I had to have something there. And we know that this isn't necessarily the right way of approaching it. I will say that since they've been a lot more receptive and a lot more supportive of people speaking here, so I am thankful for that. But I was told also that there's lots of misinformation about the bill and all this kind of fun stuff. And so initially I wanted to talk about the cuts, right? And I am going to still talk about the cuts. But I did also dig into Bill 198, and what a lovely piece of legislation that has been to be put together. So to start, Part 2 and 3, the changes to the Community and Conservation Easement Acts, it's just not appropriate. I feel like it's not enough guidance. It is a way for us to hide behind the courts for making decisions that involve more than just a voice of somebody who may own a piece of land. So when I'm taking a look at, just it might have harm to the landowner, so where this easement needs to go. Who else is being consulted? How much public interest is there in what's going on currently? Speaking from Dartmouth Cove is a huge concern for me about what's going on there and the conversation that's going on, but it's also throughout this province. If we're just leaving it to the courts, who else should be consulted? We have First Nations on this land who have been here for millennia. There's no mention whatsoever of these communities and what interest they may have in these decisions that the courts are making. That is not appropriate, and we need to do better. I'm also, this is a little more subjective, I think, to opinion, but Part 15, where we talk about provincial fees for parks. I know many federal parks have fees, but this land is so beautiful, and it's such an honor and a privilege to live here and to, access these public spaces, for what they are. And I feel that we can do better if we're looking for revenue than just, being able to charge people for entry for these provincial parks. It is just one thing that I noticed going through there, but why are we in a time when it's so hard for us to afford everyday expenses, charging one thing extra for someone to, take what little free time some of us have to go and enjoy maybe a beach or whatever it happens to be that this park would be. I just think it's tone deaf to what we actually need as Nova Scotians right now. So that's part 15. I think that should be removed as well. Part 17 for the electric and hybrid vehicle levy. So if we haven't noticed, the gas prices have shot up a little bit in the past little while. Our reliance on fossil fuels is highly subjective to the global community that we don't have control over. I've heard some questions earlier about, low-income families, single mothers maybe, whoever it happens to be, who struggle day to day for their, just to make ends meet. Having wildly fluctuating fuel prices that may impact their ability to get to work does not help that. I don't necessarily agree with all the, I don't think EVs are the silver bullet for, protecting the environment and moving forward, but I think they're better. And they are definitely a lot more price stable when you're charging from, the electricity grid than being subject to petrol prices or whatever it happened to be. So when we're thinking about these low-income people, and it feels like we're always using, oh, but what about the person who can't afford, right, as the excuse for what we're doing going forward? Well, this is definitely something that impacts them, and we should be mindful of that. So I also think that should be removed.
1 minute.
Okay, thank you. I will be quick then. There's a few other sections here that, I would like to comment on, but I won't. And I don't need time later on if that is something that's going to be happening. But again, omnibus bills, I would have to be an expert from meat packing to taxation on financial services to be able to understand everything that's in this bill. It's not appropriate. I don't know how you guys can do it. I don't think you do. I think you just get what you need to have done, throw it all together, and just pass it as a team. And that's not a great way of doing it. Slowing down and considering consulting with communities is an important part. And I also wanted to take a moment to very specifically call out the treatment of our First Nations community, the Mi'kmaq, by this government. It's not okay. They are a sovereign nation. You don't have treaties between people. Kendra and I don't have a treaty together to treat each other with respect. You have treaties with nations. They are a sovereign nation, and they need to be respected. And so throughout all of this, when we're making decisions about who's going to make this decision here, who's going to make this decision here, never am I seeing consultation with them. It is not okay as a settler, and I'm dedicated to reconciliation. It's a hard path. It's not always easy. I make mistakes. It is clear that we are not having that on the agenda, and we are not looking at it every time. And I know I have heard MLAs from the PC caucus talk at September 30th events about how this is such an important thing, and where is their voice now? The one thing that I will say.
Okay, I've given you a little extra time. We got to wrap it up. First is MLA Mumberket, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for coming in. I have one question. My first one is, you mentioned in your comments that when you called in, that the folks on the other end of the phone were telling you that there was misinformation in the bill. Can you elaborate? The reason why, because if that. Oh, you got to be recognized first. Yeah, no, that's fine.
I recognize Brian.
Yeah, so I jump ahead. That's a neurodiverse thing that happens a lot. So it wasn't that the bill had misinformation. It was that the public was being misinformation about our ability to speak to the government about our concerns regarding the budget.
All right. MLA Coombs next, please.
Thank you, Ben. And you're right. You and I do not need a treaty to respect each other because we are not nations. But that relationship between the Crown and the Mi'kmaq is a nation-to-nation relationship, absolutely. And that kind of goes into my question with regards to the parks, part of this act. There's several other acts in here, but the Parks Act, and there is one, the towing of the vehicles, as well as the fees for the parks. Now, the minister told me that it was only about camping fees, but it doesn't say that in the bill. And so I'm wondering if you want to talk, if you would mind expanding more on that relationship with the Mi'kmaq and that part of the act within the parks.
Recognize Brian.
because I put too much in what I wanted to cover for 5 minutes, and I talk a lot apparently. One of the things that I wanted to point out is that access to these lands should not be in any way impacted to the Mi'kmaq people or Indigenous peoples living on this land. So if we do impose fees, that's what we need to do, because we can't we can't figure out the financial mismanagement that this government's been having, then Indigenous peoples in this land should not be subject to that fee. I think that's just full stop. But again, like, where's the consultation for how we're using this land?
We'll go back to MLA Coombs, second time.
Thank you. And quickly here, Ben, is there you mentioned that other parts of the Act, but you didn't want to get to them. But if there are parts of the Act that you do want to speak to in this shorter time, I would love to hear.
I recognize Brian. You've got about a minute
Sorry,
and a
I called you
half.
Ben. Sorry, Brian.
That's fine, don't worry. But I am not Ben Carson, I'll say that on record.
Yeah, well, I was wondering about that. I'll give Ben extra time, but not Brian. I'll give you a little extra time, Brian. Go ahead.
The last part that was already talked about in better detail and more expertise by Vicky and Maureen about the Halifax Bridge Commission. But find me a MLA in Halifax and Dartmouth that is conservative, that was voted for because we wanted the bridge tolls gone, and I'll have a conversation about why that was appropriate to do. It was a foolish election promise to try and get votes. It's helped put us into this situation, and we may not be looking at the cuts we have now if we just didn't do it. The people of HRM did not want this change, nor did we ask for the tax cut. And so I firmly believe that while I think a lot of the damage has been done and we may not be able to go back, that just dissolving the Halifax Bridge Commission now without taking a look at other alternatives is foolish, and is just racing forward to try and make a change utterly permanent that we really need to go back and revisit.
I think that's it. Thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you so much.
All right, next we have Dr. Nancy Covington, please. Dr. Covington? Good morning, welcome. It is still morning, I think.
What am I supposed to do with these?
The page will help let you distribute those. We'll just wait for a moment. All right, well, welcome, and please introduce yourself. Let me know how you would like to be referred to, and let me know if you are speaking on behalf of yourself or an organization.
Okay, you may call me Dr. Nancy or Dr. Nancy Covington.
Okay.
And I'm speaking for myself today.
All right, welcome, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Okay, I speak from a health perspective as a family physician. I have concerns of the following sections. The Community Easements Act. This clause threatens the promise given by land conservation authorities such as Nova Scotia Nature Trust or easements on private properties to have their land protected into perpetuity. Would economic hardship allow these promises to be broken for extraction purposes, mining or logging? The Forest Act. You can listen to me instead of reading my note. I would appreciate it. This clause asks a tax for property owners for carbon sequestration. In other words, it appears that an owner of a forest acreage would be taxed if he does not log or harvest his woods. This is a very strange tax. Protected area commitments in Nova Scotia are lagging. These owners are helping to get the goal of 20% of protected lands in Nova Scotia by 2030. Penalizing them with a new tax is retrogressive. Instead, they need to be encouraged. Now, finally, the Revenue Act, taxing hybrid and electric cars more than gasoline cars, is plain stupid. It also makes me question whether our government officials are truly concerned about climate change issues exacerbated by continuing oil and gas usage. Now, agreed, Nova Scotia has a very large fiscal deficit. Mining and extracting our way out of this mining deficit is not the way to proceed in our tiny province, which has already been mined and logged out. Why? The risks of further extraction will cause the wrecking, likely irreversibly, of the very ecological foundation on which our human biology depends. We are, whether we like it or not, part of the web of life, which depends on clean water, clean air, and the diversity of non-human species around us. We need intact forests as well as space to grow non-contaminated food. Maybe we need to remember this simple fact. We cannot breathe, drink, or eat money. None of us want tackling the fiscal deficit to cause irreversible harm by extraction. However, this bill appears to be on that road. There are some wise choices which can still be made. But first, MLAs, please embrace the fact that climate change exacerbated by human use of oil and gas is real. Clear-cutting forests is wrong. Incentivize, don't penalize those. Nova Scotia is far from protecting 20% of its lands and wastes by 2030. Support those using forests sustainably. For instance, maple syrup producers produce more money per acre than logging. Don't put an uranium mine under such a forest. That would end the maple syrup production. It would ruin it forever. Instead of fracking for oil and gas, make use of the constantly replenishing energy of wind and solar. The money given to Dalhousie University to study fracking could be redirected to rejig our electrical grid to accommodate the energy from many smaller renewable resources. We don't need industries which cause issues in health, like uranium mining and fracking. The environmental issues from both would be the province's responsibility. In the case of uranium, radioactive tailings would last for hundreds of thousands of years. Instead of money towards mining research, spend that money on other industries like tourist industries, ensure all small museums stay open, support the arts. Exploited landscapes do not attract and would wreck that viable industry. To redirect thinking, reinstate both the ban on fracking and the ban on uranium mining and exploration. At least this would remove the irritant of those special interest groups who keep delivering more and more petitions. Climate change is real. Planetary boundaries are being exceeded. We have one planet and one small province. We must live within those means. You are the Conservative Party. Please conserve our natural heritage. Thank you.
That was right on. Thank you very much. And the first question is from MLA Taggart, please.
Thank you, Chair. I want to comment mostly and kind of, I think, get your perspective. But so I want to start out by saying, like, I live in rural Nova Scotia. Both my grandparents on both sides, basically made their living in the forest. Horse. I've actually yarded logs with a horse myself. So I'm a huge supporter of the Leahy report and the sustainable forestry part of it. But I think there's a misconception on this tax on unused woodland there. So it's my understanding that would only come into play if you registered that forest as a carbon sink. And the challenge with that is, like a lot of people in my community still make their living in the forestry. Forestry, fishing, and agriculture are what built this province. And I have real concerns about multinational companies, which is happening, with the enormous amounts of money coming in and buying large pieces of land forest land in Nova Scotia, which is limited. You've said, we're a small province. So, so I just want to, number one, it's my understanding that the forest is not going to be taxed if you don't manage it. I kind of wish it was. I would be happy to see us have to manage our forests, but the tax, I believe, is for those that are going to use that land as a carbon sink, which in effect takes it out of use for the people in my community that gain their livelihood from it. So I guess I understand where you're coming from. Don't get me wrong. I like those. I'm a small woodlot owner. Okay, you know what I mean. But I am concerned about, and I think that's the reason for that tax is if it's put in a carbon sink. Thank you.
Dr. Nancy, please.
Okay, well, that is very interesting. That maybe I misunderstood what that section was about. And what about the Leahy report? Is that going to be embraced?
I guess we allow questions back and forth. Right, recognize MLA Taggart.
The government has accepted the Leahy report and the three legged or stool. I refer to that as the milk and stool, but anyway, three-legged stool. The high production piece of it, the protected piece of it, and the sustainable piece of it, which I absolutely agree with. And the challenge there is, and I don't want to take up all the time, but I'm passionate about this. The challenge there is that we have to, to manage a forest, we have to take all the low-grade wood out of it. Right? You know what I mean? So we allow the young, healthy trees to grow and prosper and capture carbon. And we don't have a market for that right now. I'm getting way off subject. I'm sorry, but yes, we are. The government has, the Department of Natural Resources has accepted the Leahy report. Yes. Yep.
Tom can talk till the cows come home. Okay, next we have MLA Gallagher, please.
Thank you, Chair. I really do enjoy listening to my colleagues talk about their passions. I hear the member across the floor talking about it. I do. My concerns, and I've been speaking about this since the bill came, is easements, in particularly farmland easements. I'm very, very worried about losing farmland, because once we lose it, it doesn't come back. And I'm curious if you want to talk a little bit more about the easements. You ran through it really quickly, and with you, Chair, if we have time, I'd love to hear more about your thoughts about the easement pieces in the FMA.
Dr. Nancy, you have just over a minute.
Okay, so the community easements. Yes, it's. For me, it's hard to understand some of the legalese, I must admit. And it seemed to me that if Nova Scotia Nature Trust took on donations from members of the public to protect a place, that had to be a forever thing. And that's what I was wondering about. Or if you have an easement on your personal property that says it can't be logged and developed and so on. That would be a promise, I think, that would be a sacred promise. But in terms of selective forestry, you have to remember that we can't just, it isn't sort of, there are garbage species and not. It's the whole that has to be protected, and I think we tend to forget that. And that's where the biodiversity piece is so important. And I think
that is our time now. Thank you very much, Dr. Nancy, for being here. Wish you well. Our next presenter is online, Yasmin. Jasmine. Jasmine, can you hear us?
Introduce myself?
Okay, I can't see you. I can hear you.
Yeah, I have to be running between meetings because I was supposed to be on at 10:10, so I regret that I'm unable to be on video today, but I am between my office meeting. I hope that's all right.
So you're saying you don't want the camera on for that reason? Is that what you're saying?
I'm just in my car, so...
Oh, I'm sorry. You're in your car. All right. Well, you concentrate on... All right. Well, you be safe.
I'm not driving. I would never drive. I would never drive. I am parked, but I am in public, and so I just wanted to make sure I prioritize this meeting because it's important to me.
All right. Well, thank you. I can refer to you as Jasmine. Are you speaking as an individual, or do you represent an organization?
I am speaking as an individual.
All right. You have up to 5 minutes. Please go ahead, and good morning.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. Bonjour, je m'appelle Jasmine. Hello, my name is Jasmine. I regret that I am unable to be on video today, but I am between my office commuting to different meetings and prioritize this committee meeting amongst my other commitments this morning when this time slot was offered. I hope that me doing so is viewed as a dedication to Nova Scotia, our democracy, and its people, that it is, as though I would have loved to appear in person if possible. I would describe myself as someone who has benefited from the removal of the bridge tolls. I also believe that the removal of paid parking at the hospital to be good policy. I don't know about this committee, but for me, there have been many a night in the emergency room or taking loved ones to medical appointments where worrying about paying for things like parking becomes a stressful burden during some of the most strenuous and difficult moments people can experience. And while I would have supported these costs being cut for Nova Scotians, they are coming at the expense of many other things that support this province and the people in it, including some of our most vulnerable people. I am someone who was deeply shocked and horrified by the cuts to the Department of Opportunities, formerly known as Community Services. I struggled to find words for days to articulate how devastating the cuts to the Department of Opportunities would have been. As you have now heard, these services are fundamental to people being able to survive. Seeing these initial cuts has really brought that the rest of the budget has been made with, seeing those initial cuts has really brought doubt that the rest of the budget has been made with the necessary considerations for the impacts that it will have on the wider community. I urge you to consider the impact of these cuts. Like a lot of people in the Disability Services Program, there are many community members who use places like the mobile food market, libraries, and family resource centers. The same family resource centers that the government links on their website. The Nova Family Village Resource Center has seen an enormous increase in usage, and other centers are reporting similar findings as well, some up to 50%. The mobile food market has become a staple for people to access good food in their communities and may have to close locations due to these spending cuts. We all know costs are high right now, and places that run important programs like our libraries, our resource centers, and the mobile food market are being stripped. And even without libraries facing specific cuts, the funding is not keeping up with inflation, and libraries groups express that they will likely have to cut staff and programming that keeps community hubs and the resources that they are able to provide alive. All these programs that keep families fed and that keep communities connected. People using these places count pennies, not dollars. There is no spending on a whim. There are strict budgets and incredibly high food bank usage. These programs provide support to people who need assistance with food, housing, and other important programming. Just as disability is not something within someone's control and they should not be punished for it, people are struggling right now and should not be forced to navigate the upcoming years without these fundamental supports and the grants that fund them. To quote the Premier, bringing that cost to struggling families, unquote, is not the intent. That is why I believe there needs to be a reexamination of this budget. Cutting grants and funding will cripple this sector and the people who rely on it, and that amount of people increases every single year. I implore you to re-examine this budget and perhaps begin again after hearing the objections from community members. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. First question is from MLA Coombs, please.
Thank you, and thank you for taking the time in between your very busy day to come before us. And the other thing I want to say is thank you so much for, although you have benefited for some of the cuts, to understand that what this government has done in this budget, what it seems to be happening is that it's at the cost to vulnerable individuals. And that is to be truly commend it, because sometimes it's hard to see past our own wants and needs. And for you to do that is a sign of a true good citizen, and understanding the social contract. So I want to ask you if you'd like to elaborate more on how the cuts that were not rescinded in OSD, Opportunities in Social Development, not only causes harm to individuals, but our communities as a whole.
I recognize Jasmine. Go ahead, Jasmine.
Oh, thank you. If I can speak plainly, I've worked in areas of accessibility in healthcare, and when these departments, when these programs, when they fail people, the other fundamental sectors have to pick up after that. We see this continuously when we are not working on healthcare from a preventative standpoint. It is then reactive. We have more people in the emergency room. We have more people experiencing absolutely devastating, personal consequences. And so I did and do benefit from being able to access hospital parking and going across the bridge as much as I'd like. I know and I see it in my communities, the effect that it has on others, and especially our most vulnerable. It's not something that makes financial sense, and it's not something for me morally that makes moral conscionable sense.
Thank you. Anyone else with questions? Okay, do we have a second question? Go ahead.
Thank you. And again,
I recognize MLA Coombs.
They put my mic on first. Thank you again so much. And I want to commend you for your strong stance and moral stance and understanding the social contract that we all have with each other. It's really beautiful, and it has brightened my day today. So thank you so much.
Yasmin, thank you very much for joining us, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. I hope the community has a good day as well, and it's productive for you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Next, we have appearing in person Margaret Sagar. Margaret? Put my glasses in. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
How would you like me to refer to you?
Well, my name is Margaret Sagar. You can call me Margaret.
Well, thank you. And are you representing an organization or just speaking on behalf?
I live in Terrence Bay, and I'm speaking for myself.
All right.
And for my I'm finished just a moment. And I'm speaking for myself and for my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, and 7 generations to come. And I am a minister in the United Church of Canada, but I'm not here in an official capacity.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for being here. You have up to 5 minutes.
Thank you. I believe that the gospel of Christ upholds 3 principles for human beings to live by: love, justice, and the sacred responsibility to care for creation. Other spiritualities, including that of the Mi'kmaq, also recognize these principles as the foundation for human life within the web of life. I have been engaged for decades with various church and civil society organizations that seek to promote such in the world, those special interest groups. Using an ethical lens, I draw your attention to the values which enable love, justice, and care of creation. Values such as compassion, treating all life, human and non-human, with dignity and respect, taking care of each other, especially the most vulnerable, in a just manner, demonstrating honesty, integrity, and respect in all aspects of life. And these values apply to governments, but I do not see them in this bill or in the budget or in the related actions. Omnibus bills such as this are disrespectful. They obfuscate and deny the Legislative Assembly and the public time to thoroughly study them. A government employing that tactic is not acting with honesty, integrity, and transparency. Following the opportunistic election in which only 45% of the electorate voted, The Premier veered from his platform to promote extractive industries, rolling back the ban on uranium mining and the moratorium on fracking. And the government refuses to consult with those whose expertise would be helpful in determining the path forward. The work of scientific research, along with social, health, legal, cultural, and economic research, is ignored. Little attention is paid to the existential crisis of climate change, and we know it's caused by the emissions of both carbon dioxide and methane. The latest report on climate indicates that this year and next will be affected by an El Nino and are likely to be hottest ever. And Nova Scotia will be subjected to fires, droughts, floods, high winds, and coastal erosion with ever-increasing frequency and mounting costs. One response is to care for creation rather than pillaging nature for its lumber and minerals. There are sections 52 to 54 and 60 to 61, which seem to be detrimental to land protection and forest care. Yet we know that trees, especially older forest stands, sequester carbon, retain water in the soil, and provide ecological systems for biodiversity, and wetlands do too. And the dismantling of the Wildlife Division of the Department of Natural Resources signals disrespect, indeed contempt, for these experts and for wildlife, especially species at risk. Species are disappearing at an alarming rate. These are our relatives whom Creator requires us to treat with dignity and love, not subject to abuse and exploitation. And the very essence of the word protection is distorted when wilderness and parks might be opened up to development, exactly what they were to be protected from. Could make a comment about electric vehicles, and that's really already been made. And I heard a presentation yesterday. I heard also a presentation about meat inspection and other matters related to health, which Dr. Covington has also touched upon. Through the implementation of the social determinants of health, costs of healthcare would be reduced, and other costs in society. To live without undue stress in a healthy environment with clean air, water, and soil, with decent housing, nutritious food, sufficient income for social participation is a human right. And government should make this a reality, demonstrating love and justice for all people, especially those needing special care. There are, of course, other cuts, especially those within the Department of Community, Culture, Tourism and Heritage, and others have and will be speaking very eloquently about these matters that nurture our humanity. I could give you an example from the SS Atlantic Society. But yet $1 million is given for the wealthy Sale GP, spearheaded by a billionaire buddy of Trump. This government evades public scrutiny. All expenditures outside the budget should be examined by the independent auditor. Citizens have a right to know where that $6 billion was spent. There's also the thing about attracting industry with incentives. $24 million of that given to Dalhousie is for incentives to industry. And past practices of luring industry for mining or pulp mills have left the province with a toxic mess to be cleaned up. This exhibits neither justice nor love nor care for creation. Greed for wealth, power, or prestige does not promote love, justice, and care for creation. Such motives undermine compassion, care of the most vulnerable, honesty, integrity, and transparency in government. Jesus overturned the tables in the temple when he saw that an institution intended to serve love had lost its legitimacy through the greed of the powerful, and he held them to account at the risk of his own life. I will close with this relevant quotation by Chief Luther Standing Bear, a Lakota Sioux. The elders were wise. They knew that man's heart, away from nature, becomes hard. They knew that lack of respect for growing, living things soon led to a lack of respect for humans, too. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. We now have questions, beginning with MLA Coombs.
Thank you. Growing up in the Catholic tradition, I feel like I need to call you Reverend. And also, that was one of my favorite passages within the Gospel. And I think it actually formed my politics quite well when I think about it. You mentioned that there was an example you want to give, and if you'd like to give that example, I'd be more than willing to listen to it.
I recognize Margaret Sergey.
I reside in Terence Bay, as I said, where there is the SS Atlantic Heritage Park Society, which operates a museum and looks after the park with a gravesite. And I served on that board for 15 years. And if you don't know about that event, it was in 1873, and the ship, the SS Atlantic, wrecked just off the coast of Lower Prospect, and the courageous residents of the little villages in the area rescued 400 survivors. This event we really need to keep that alive in the community and the history, and it's a really, really important part of Nova Scotia history, and I can't go into that now if you don't know about it. Fortunately, I'm rather glad to know that this is a community museum and not a provincial one, because it might have been cut and shut. But we have drawn upon the expertise of the Association of Nova Scotia Museums, ANSM, which I believe has their budget cut. And we've also received grants from the community of the Department of Community, Culture, Tourism and Heritage. And presumably such grants aren't going to be available in the future. And that will impose a much bigger burden on the local people to do fundraising to keep that story alive, which is so vital to our history. 1873. It's a bit like the Come From Away story from Gander in 2001. So 11, I mean. No, what do I mean? 2001. I can't believe it's that long ago. So it's an important part of Nova Scotia's history.
Thank you. Next we have MLA Wozni, please.
Thank you, Chair. Folks like yourself have been looking for clarity about the intent, design, and purpose of these bills since they were tabled 3 weeks ago. And it's only within the last 24 hours that we're hearing anybody in government stand up and provide a rationale for the changes proposed in legislation and what they're intended to achieve. You've spoken passionately about the need to protect our resources from reckless, poorly structured extractive efforts, but understanding the need that there are resources we need to tap into if we are going to move forward with the work of extractive resources in Nova Scotia. By what process do you believe the government should engage before tabling legislation that puts those industries in stone, in law?
I recognize Margaret Sager.
You have to consult with the people who know the science and who know the area. Those bans on uranium mining and on fracking in the moratorium were not put on there just for the sake of being a nuisance or whatever. They had solid scientific facts behind them. And as the previous speaker, Dr. Covington, said, we are a small province and we have water, which is absolutely valuable. Water is life. We cannot do without it. And I talked to a geologist friend of mine some years ago who said that once that fracking chemicals go into the ground, you have no idea where it goes, and you can't retrieve it. And the risk of pollution and the risk for health is far, far greater than any benefit that we might get from tapping into those resources. Perhaps if we weren't such a small area, it might be possible. But I think it's just going completely up the wrong way, barking up the wrong tree and cutting down the wrong one, too.
Thank you very much. Our time is up, and thank you for being here this morning. Right, next we have appearing in person Jenna Murphy. Is Jenna here? Good morning, welcome. How would you like me to refer to you?
You can call me Jenna. I use she, her pronouns, and the rest of my introduction is in my speech.
All right, go right ahead. You have up to 5 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Jenna Murphy. I am representing myself and not an organization today. I wish I could speak on the horrendous cuts to marginalized people and environment that this government has budgeted, but I will instead be speaking on multiple clauses in the Financial Measures Act. The first important thing you should know about me is that I am a volunteer nature conservationist whose focus is in preserving native plant and pollinator species through the establishment of new pollinator gardens and meadows. The second is that I have a fine arts degree and I like to tell stories. So let me spin you a yarn. The last time I spoke in front of the Law Amendments Committee was when Stephen McNeil cut the film tax credit, and boy, does this situation feel eerily similar. So I know how this chapter ends. You will pass this bill and all the others without any consideration for how they will negatively affect this province. It's a heartbreaking story every time. But let's back up to the prologue. Tim Houston and the Conservatives spent outside of the budget and manufactured a financial crisis by cutting taxes and tolls in order to buy cheap votes from people who live paycheck to paycheck. Then they boasted about austerity, knowing these same people would relate with their belt-tightening budget. But those of us who pay attention see it for what it is, a premeditated strategy to railroad through harmful and undemocratic bills. The Conservatives waited until they had a supermajority to push through several bills that benefit a specific accountant named in the Paradise Paper and his cohorts, while simultaneously attacking marginalized communities. Now, back to this chapter of the story. The Financial Measures Act has many examples of the undemocratic benefits I've mentioned, but I'll be focusing only on those that infringe environmental and treaty rights. Clauses 52 to 55 allow for the Supreme Court of Nova Scotia to terminate community and conservation easements, among other things. But why would my government advocate for ways to remove well-used community easements that improve quality of life for constituents? And why would they advocate for the removal of integral conservation easements that play a role in preserving land, wildlife, and water? It certainly wouldn't be for the benefit of large corporations like Atlantic Road Construction and Paving, would it? That would certainly make my government the villain of this story. Clauses 60 and 110 are punitive in nature and punish stewards of sustainability and ecological preservation. A levy on electric vehicles and hybrids, as well as increased taxes on carbon sinks. These clauses represent the further burden that the Nova Scotia Conservative Party wants to put on principled constituents instead of the money-hungry corporations where it belongs. Clause 58 allows for cars to be impounded on Crown land, an innocuous point until John Lohr said the quiet part out loud when speaking about protests by Mi'kmaq land protectors. His quote is as follows: "I think during those protests we learned we didn't have the ability to impound vehicles and thought that should be something that we should be able to do." So Clause 58 isn't as innocuous as it looks. It's really about infringing the Canadian Charter right to peaceful assembly and the Mi'kmaq Peace and Friendship Treaty right to land stewardship. That's villain behavior right there. The rest of this story hasn't been written yet. A lot of uncertainty resides in the future chapters of this novel. Perhaps history will repeat itself, and the Conservative Party will go on to win another few years of leadership like Stephen McNeil did after the last time I spoke in front of the Law Amendments Committee. I'll passionately plant my pollinator gardens, and the status quo will remain unchanged. Or perhaps more Nova Scotians will conclude that they are in fact the hero of this story, seeing themselves as Katniss Everdeen in The Hunger Games, Frodo and Sam in The Lord of the Rings, or Luke Skywalker in Star Wars. Or perhaps they will see themselves as I do, as the plaintiff in Mather versus Ontario, where a group of youth have taken the government to court over weakening greenhouse gas emission targets as an infringement of their right. You see, I think this story ends like all good rebellion stories do, where the people become conscious and rise up against the establishment, overthrowing them on the streets, in the polls, and courtrooms. In my handout, I've left you with a description of court cases that set precedent in which the environment itself has been deemed to have rights, or that the people have the right to a thriving environment, so that you can ponder which side of the story you really want to be on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First, we have questions from MLA Coombs, please.
Thank you, and what a yarn you spun. It really goes to the artistic community of how well they can tell us the stories about what is happening in our communities. And I thank you for being here. I thank you for bringing this story to life here. I guess my question for you is on Clause 58. How do you see this affecting our relationship with the Mi'kmaq, with another nation to nation? From my point of view, I think the relationship is almost damaged beyond repair. But I think nothing's ever beyond repair. But how do you see this as part of that relationship?
I recognize Jenna.
Thank you for your question. This Clause 58 affects the Mi'kmaq people just as much as many of the clauses do, including the restrictions on tobacco that is also in the Financial Measures Act. We, the people, are not stupid. We can see that these things are being pushed through in the Financial Measure Act because if the Conservative Party doesn't all vote for this bill, then it triggers an election. And so by putting these measures in this bill, it ensures that they happen regardless of if they are morally right or not. And we know that for some reason, this government is attacking the Mi'kmaq people, and they are doing it in these ways. They are putting restrictions on things that the Mi'kmaq have treaty rights to, and it's really shameful. I attended the protest, which was the first protest that happened. Although I am obviously in the arts community, and that is really important to me. For me, it was more important to stand with the Mi'kmaq people. Sorry, I do find this really upsetting. It's a shame that our government really tries to hurt us all the time in sneaky ways, and I'm really getting tired of it. Yeah.
MLA Wozni, please.
As an English teacher, I appreciate the narrative you presented. I respect that as an active listener and observer of the political process in Nova Scotia, the cover story of the budget is protecting the province. By looking at the contents, you've arrived at a very different conclusion about what this budget's aims are. You referenced the last time you were here at Law Amendments, and a government made short-sighted, whipped politics decisions. And you talked about knowing how that story ends. I wonder if you'd like to elaborate for the members of the current supermajority who claim that the FMA is in the best interest of this province. How did that story end? What were the impacts for real Nova Scotians, and what was the eventual outcome for the government that supported it of the day?
Recognize Jenna.
Yes, so the last time I spoke in front of the Law Amendments Committee, I believe it was 2015, which is when the film tax credit was cut. I have a film degree from NASCAD, but I also work in education. I am an EPA. And so in 2014, I believe that was when Stephen McNeil had chosen to leave teachers in the lurch and not give them a proper deal. So I see this on both sides. I have seen so many people leave the province and move because they can't work in education and they can't work in film. Tim Houston he was pretended to be on our side, much as any politician will do, and promised to bring the film industry back. But when I was on strike as an EPA 2 years ago, he couldn't tell me what the living wage was in Nova Scotia. So he really has no concept of what is needed for me to survive in this province, which is really disturbing. Yeah, all of these decisions impact Nova Scotians in massive, massive ways. And what happens is now Nova Scotia is in a place where most people are living below the poverty line. Most people are struggling to be here, and so they don't have time to push back on all of the political forthcomings, I guess. So it gets easier and easier for you guys to pass bills that, glad hand your friends and leave us in the lurch. Yeah, and I think the massive amount of voices that you've heard against this is really also a symptom of us being fed up, and I'm hoping that most of you are paying attention, because the next couple of years are not going to be easy. There's going to be a lot more of this.
Thank you for your presentation. Next, we have coming to us virtually Joy Laking. Laking. Good morning, Joy. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
How would you like me to refer to you?
Joy is great.
Joy is great. All right. I see some beautiful art in behind you. Thank you. Welcome. You have up to 5 minutes. Are you speaking on your own behalf or on behalf of an organization?
I'm speaking on my own behalf.
All right. Well, go ahead. Look forward to hearing from you.
And I apologize that I'm not there in person. We had heavy snow this morning, and I'm in Portapique and afraid of the bad driving.
No, we're glad to see you online.
I may not know all the facts, but much of what is being decided by our provincial government just doesn't make sense to me, and I feel I can't stay quiet. 43 years ago, I protested uranium mining in Nova Scotia at Judge McLeave's commission in Truro. My slogan then was, "Why risk Nova Scotia's tomorrow for corporate profits today?" It's as true today as it was then. This time, we are not even given the opportunity to oppose this change of direction. As well, the section of Department of Natural Resources that would oversee changes in wildlife and water quality because of uranium mining is being shut down. Removing community consent for fracking is threatening our democracy and our province. Hoping to base our economy on fossil fuel extraction in the past has ended up with water poisoned and our land toxic. Our government is supporting clear cutting and is conveying huge grants to corporations, mostly foreign owned, and universities to tell us that they can rape and pillage with no damage. This is totally unacceptable. At this time of global warming, we must plan to leave a world for our children and grandchildren. I have been a professional artist living and painting in Nova Scotia for the past 54 years. Our cultural industry in Nova Scotia brings in more money than fisheries, forestry, and mining combined, and yet it is being gutted. Our culture is intrinsic to our understanding of ourselves as Nova Scotians. Cutting subsidies to Nova Scotia publishers will prevent many books about and by Nova Scotians from being published. One of my books, The Painted Province, Nova Scotia Through an Artist's Eyes, published by Pottersfield Press in 2020, had 4 printings and shows the world our Nova Scotia beauty. It wouldn't have existed without the provincial subsidy. The Ships Company Theatre in Parsboro, Nova Scotia, has been in existence for 42 years. Since its inception, I've attended the plays. I was on the board as a volunteer for 6 years, and my daughter, as a university student, worked as a carpenter for Ships Company Theatre for 2 summers. Now, because of the cuts, the theatre is threatened. If the cuts proceed this summer, there will be only 1 play in July and none in August. This halves not only the revenue and the spin-off revenue, but it also means very limited employment for the actors and the support people, many of whom are university students. We all need to know how many of our province's terrific tourist attractions will be seriously jeopardized if this budget goes ahead. Closing many historic sites and houses based on falling visitor numbers is very short-sighted. The reduction in visitor numbers is partly due to this government. In recent years, the government stopped printing the fabulous Stewards and Dreamers Guide. Many of us Nova Scotians, as well as visitors, kept it in our cars and relied on it. Also, a couple of years ago, the government closed the provincial distribution center in Dartmouth, which distributed all of our tourist brochures. In addition, we have experienced a lengthy pandemic. Visitation to my own gallery, the Joy Lakin Gallery in Portapique, which was built in 1987, has fallen from 6,000 to 1,000. What will closing more visitor information centers do to our once thriving tourism? I agree with the Halifax Examiner that this province has engineered a deficit crisis by slashing taxes and cutting revenues such as bridge tolls and highway tolls. The Premier, with his accounting background, wasn't just surprised that this deficit happened. He and the Conservatives caused this to happen. I feel that this government is implementing designer capitalism instead of funding institutions that give democracy meaning. Before the budget is implemented, we, the people of Nova Scotia, as well as the government, must know just how disastrous the outcomes will be. Should we all try to continue to keep a place that we all love and care for, where healthy and happy families thrive?
I've actually, your time is up, but I've also lost your audio here for a minute. So we're going to see, there's going to be some questions for you, I think. Hopefully we'll be able to hear you. Starting with MLA Taggart, please.
Thanks, Chair. Hi, Joy. I just, I guess I want to say it's good to see you. I will certainly admit that, you know, you and I don't always fall in the same place politically, but I can't pass up the opportunity to tell people about the value that you've had to our community. And, you know, I guess you talked about publishing books. I grew up across the road from Joy, and I remember the first book that she, I don't remember exactly, but I'm not sure if you wrote it or if you just illustrated it, Joy. I can't remember for sure.
The Brook and the Woodcutter.
Yeah, that's right. That was pretty cool. Yeah, and like so, you know, again, you know, you know, I'm not always that. I don't like to be offside with my friends and neighbors, and you know, we have some differing opinions. But I just, I can't. Like, you need to go to the Joy Lakin Gallery. I'll just tell you that right now. Like the pictures, I'm looking at the pictures. I probably got some of those as I'm not sure the right name for prints in my home. I know I got rocking chairs. I know my family has all, but I'm, you know, I just want to. I wanted to say that, Joy, and I understand our differences, but like I get all the calls too about other things, you know, about people from my constituency living in their car in the Walmart parking lot, you know, and kids with no food and empty oil barrels and that sort of thing, and that's kind of why I, you know, kind of get where I'm at. But I just need to say that, Joy, and I appreciate everything you've done. Thank you.
Did you want to respond, Joy? I recognize Joy.
I have working really hard for the community as a volunteer all of my life. And I just think we absolutely have to know what's going to be the result of this budget before we implement it.
Thank you. I recognize MLA Wozni, please. We've got about a minute and a half.
Thank you, Ms. Laking, for your presentation. You point out a number of measures in the Financial Measures Act, and you've expressed sort of your concern at the difficulty of understanding what its impact and scope will be. I can tell you, as someone who's asked questions in a constructive manner in official debate, I have not been able to get any rationale from anybody in government about how sort of the tax changes will bolster our revenue, or who it will help and who it will hurt. But I'm wondering if you can talk about an an act that incentivizes and advantages corporations while it places a higher burden of taxation to fix the deficit on private landowners and regular people. As a regular Nova Scotian, what are your thoughts on that dynamic?
Recognize Joy.
I don't really have any response to that. I'm more concerned with the culture of Nova Scotia going down the drain, I guess. And as a grandmother and mother, I'm concerned that the province has a future for this coming generation.
All right. Joy, thank you very much for presenting this morning. It was nice to see your art. And have you done a portrait of Tom yet? Or?
No.
All right. Have a great day. Thanks for talking to us.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Next, we have appearing in person, Nancy Hunter. Is Nancy here? Yes. Good morning. Come on up. Welcome.
Thank you.
How would you like to be referred to by me or us? And are you speaking on your own behalf or an organization?
I'm speaking on my own behalf, and Nancy is
Nancy's
great.
fine. All right. You have up to 5 minutes, and then we'll have some questions afterwards.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
So I've lived in the district of Halifax Atlantic almost all my life. My 91-year-old mother still lives in the same house I grew up in. My roots on both sides of my family go back to the very earliest settlers in Nova Scotia. They settled in Lunenburg, Jador on the Eastern Shore, and in Hants County. All were what we would consider poor or working class. My family's very political. I have never missed a vote. We are often in this province because of hardship. We're called a have-not province, often because of our connection and dependency on the lands and the waters. We are, at our core, down-home community people. There's a reason we are the people of the kitchen party. I'm telling you all this now because there is something about us, there is something in our blood, in our culture, in our land, in the shared love of how lucky we feel to live in this place. But there's something very different happening right now. I want to tell you about something that happened last night, not in the legislature. But as someone who has been involved in community work and activism for 5 decades in this province, because of this budget, this omnibus bill, which we all consider to be very anti-democratic, and the way it's being rammed through, it's been overwhelming for our communities. But it has done something that I've never seen before. It has brought people together in a way. And I've done a lot of activism, a lot of community work. I've never seen anything like this before. Last night there was a gathering called The Many versus the Money at a church on Tower Road. 150 people gathered, crowded into a church basement. These were not people from political parties. These were not people that I knew some of the people. They were certainly some of the people who have been organizing the rallies, but there were people from rural communities. There was elders from churches. There was students. Everyone was there. We were there to talk about the bills. We were there, and I've gone off my notes, and I'm going to get lost. We were talking about the bills, and what we were really talking about was how we've come from cross sectors, cross geography, and communities. We can't be painted as special interests anymore. We are artists and farmers. We are rural and urban. We are settler and Mi'kmaq. We are the heart and the soul of this place, and we are finding each other. And we are committed. We aren't going anywhere, no matter what you do, no matter how you try and rip the hearts out of these communities, no matter how much you just try and destroy our lands. We are not going anywhere. We are upset of the disrespect and the disregard for the Mi'kmaq Treaty rights. We are kind of floored by the degradation of democracy. My PC voting father would be turning in his grave with what's going on right now. And we are, the group is called The Many versus the Money. We are the many, and the money is who all these bills and all these cuts are for. They are not for us. They are not for the unhoused. You can't pit artists against the unhoused anymore. We know that we are all connected. There is an undeniable groundswell of opposition. There's been barely a chirp from anybody I know, and I know a lot of people, that this budget is good. There is no groundswell of support for the direction this government is taking. This is not a budget for the people of this province. This is a budget only for the Premier and the PC MLAs. Trash this budget and this legislation. Go back to the people in your communities that you are supposed to represent. We are on this side are making new connections.
1 minute.
New friendships. We're building community. We're building for a Nova Scotia we want, no matter what you do. We are expanding in support in every community in this province. This government is shrinking. Your support is shrinking. Our support is gaining. We're not going anywhere. The worst kind of politics that we see lately is that's trying to divide us. We aren't divided. Tories, Liberals, NDPers, in the country, in the city, artists, environmentalists, we're all learning what being treaty people means. And we are not going anywhere.
Thank you for being here. And first of all, we have MLA Wozni, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ms. Hunter, for your presentation. And I very much appreciate your initial remarks that kind of capture not just your relationship to this land, but I think a lot of people hearing your comments, they would resonate about why we love living where we do. I have yet to meet folks like yourself who disagree that the government is in a difficult spot. You're aware of the geopolitics that this government has to navigate. We all understand that a war in Iran has ripples that touch us here in Nova Scotia, and it doesn't matter what party's in power, any government is going to struggle with those realities. Nonetheless, given the breadth and the scope of your activism over a lifetime, and all the folks that you're meeting, how many people have you met that can report somebody from the government side caucus made an attempt to have dialogue with folks in advance of a budget to talk about these realities and elicit input about if we can't do everything that we want to, if we've got to make tough decisions, what should those decisions look like so we do no harm? And if a government doesn't take that approach, how in your mind should a government, regardless of who's in power, approach the question of facing tough fiscal times alongside the people that they serve?
I recognize Nancy.
Okay. I know 0 people in my community that the MLA approached. In fact, I would say there's a culture of not approaching the people in my community for input. And I have a lot of experts in my community. I have a lot of good community-minded people. We're not consulted on anything. I think that I spend more time in my local grocery store talking to my neighbors about issues and costs of things and problems that we're all facing right now than my MLA ever has. Was there a second part of your question?
Does anyone else wish to speak, or shall we continue on? Okay, we'll come back to this time. MLA Mumbercat, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and just more of a comment. I appreciate you coming here. It's to your point, I haven't met a person in Cape Breton or beyond that supports this budget. It is, the FMA particularly around people are just lost on how the government can take away so much revenue streams, and I've said this in a debate in the House, is that, this is really the first time that they've had to make real decisions because they, spent way over budget and I argue bought an election in 2024. And the first place they went after was the most vulnerable. And that sends a big message about empathy. And empathy is everything in life. It's what government should be the foundation. It should be the foundation of any government, to put yourself in the shoes of others. And the government failed miserably in this experience. So thank you for being here. I appreciate your advocacy over your lifetime. And maybe we'll cross paths in Cape Breton when you're there. So thank you.
MLA Wasney, you have a minute if you'd like to try a second question.
Well, I think the second part of my question is, in the absence of any meaningful attempt to consult with community, knowing the community is wise enough to understand the difficulty confronting government, how could a government facing such tough times construct a pathway forward through those tough times financially to make a way that is the least harmful to the province and best positions us for long-term health and success?
I recognize Nancy with 30 seconds.
Okay, that's a big question. The first thing I want to say is the same people that are fighting against the arts cuts, against the degradation of environmental protection, are the same people who are working in our community organizations who fight for the unhoused, who fight against low wages. There are also, we tend to be people who live within our own means. We know how to budget because we have no choice. We are not the elite. We are not. So we're already people with knowledge in those areas. Through my history of activism, I have found very little government, and this goes across parties, very little government consultation with the people who really know these issues. And I think with this particular budget,
I'm going to have to cut you off, Nancy.
Okay.
I've given you a little extra time. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your comments. It's appreciated. All right, next on the list we have Jesse Walker. Weber. I'm wrong. Can't see with or without my glasses. Jesse Weber, come on up.
Tell me about it. I'm getting over myself.
All right. It sounds like you're...
I told myself if we got here up here today and I said the word peanut butter, that would be a win. And if I turned out and ran, because they definitely don't make it not intimidating walking from this building as someone walk through a big building with the pillars. Why were they obsessed with pillars so much back then?
Well, listen, I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say about Bill. Okay, let me... Okay, just hang on. Yeah, whoa.
I've been watching the news lately, and just because I don't know, it's so crazy out there.
All right.
I realized if I didn't listen to the news for the last 6 years, nothing I don't think really...
Okay, I want you to listen to me just for a minute.
Sorry.
I'm not in the news, but just listen to me for a minute, and then it'll be your turn. So welcome. Look forward to hearing you. Glad you're here. How do you wish me to... Jesse's calling you Jesse?
Yeah,
okay?
yeah, sure.
All right, and you have 5 minutes to speak to us, and then up to 5 minutes for folks to ask questions. So welcome, and it's over to you. I'll give you a minute warning when your time's almost
cool.
up.
Thank you.
All right, good morning. Off you go.
Oh, am I good now?
You good.
All right, geez, here we go. Well, I definitely won't be starting with that joke. All right. Let me say. Oh, yeah, before I start, I wanted everyone to admire that I'm wearing some Citadel Hill socks today. But I realized that they're both not the same length. I don't know how that happened. Like, do they sell them like that? Anywho, I should just go along here at a good clip. Like, I haven't been listening to a lot of this, but I don't know, just lately, just everyone around me is like upset all the time. And I asked ChatGPT, like, where can I go and talk to someone about this? Why is everyone so mad, And it sent me here, which is kind of strange, So today was a big day. So I decided to come down and, I come down to these places. I feel like there's like a lot of soft hands here and sometimes like a little puffy faces like I see on TV. And like, sometimes I heard that like the Irvings, they say that like you're not supposed to, like when you work for them, you're not drinking. And I think that's like a great idea for anyone that works for like the city or province, like while they're in active service, like not drinking would probably be good. Just because I keep seeing pictures of the mayor, like always with a glass of white wine, like half the time, I don't know. And just like, this is Nova Scotia. Would it kill him to have a beer every once in a while? You know what I'm saying? It's like, come on, man. Like, you don't have to bring that back from Ottawa with you.
Let's focus on 198,
okay, so
please.
again, when was I going to get here? All right. All right, a lot about that. Let's see. So I wrote this at 9 a.m. So that part won't go. I can write a speech for $3K, and that's a good deal. All right. I don't know if it's true or not about we preach austerity, and somehow there's like a $13,000 speech fund, which is nearly half my current savings right now that I've saved over the last 5 years, which I'm very proud of. I thought people here were good with money. I thought that's why everyone voted, and everyone keeps saying, where did all the money go? And especially, like, how come I buy a $500 TV and there's like a money-back guarantee, like for like a year, but then like $13,000 or $10,000 just goes for like a speech somewhere, and like, no, it's gone? What? Where'd it go? I thought you guys were good with money. Anyway, where'd the money go? And like, Lord help me if I hear the word uranium. Like, it's just like low-grade radioactive kitty litter here. They're already doing it better in Saskatchewan. We already know it's going to be a boondoggle. So why bother? You know, like it's not that stuff that keeps coming up in people's basement and gives like the radon. Like, maybe you guys could like give out like those radon detectors, because that, like, you know, this time of year, that stack effect happens in people's houses and will draw like radon up from people's basements because, like, you know, the heat, low pressure in the top. So that's, you know, causes, you know, medical system. I'm sure they would appreciate that we maybe look into that. Anywho, I mean, it's a volatile commodity anyway. Why are we going to like the commodity? It's like Saskatchewan going to start doing lobster soon? I don't know. Anyway, sorry, I'm all over the place this morning. Like, again, this was very last minute. This isn't from the Valley. I don't know where it's from. I'm sorry. Anyway, what does the Prime Minister think? Like a central banker, or two central banks, that the mayor missed the budget? You know what I mean? Like, that sounds like, why would anyone support that, you know, at all? Isn't that like the biggest day of the year for everybody? Like the time they're supposed to go to work, like everything gets done. Why didn't you show up to the budget? You know, like, you took a vacation? Am I wrong here?
I think you're confusing the mayor with the premier, and no one, to my knowledge, is on vacation at the moment. But just let's go back to 198. Yeah, no one's on vacation. The premier's not on vacation. No.
But the mayor was on vacation during the budget.
But this is provincial. Let's talk about 198. No, it's okay, man. Just try and stay focused. I'll give you an extra.
All right. Why can't people write off their bus passes on their taxes? Instead, they can go to a business lunch. You know, you can write that off while people are going down to the dockyards. The whole reason the city exists is because of like the Navy, the docks, we're building ships, and they're warships right now because we're on eve of a great global conflict. And it just seems like this province keeps asking people to sacrifice over and over again. Don't go into the woods. The pandemic happened, the lockdowns. It's just sacrifice after sacrifice after sacrifice. And I'm proud of them. You know, like, I think they did really good. You know, and it's just like, again, there's going to come a moment we're going to ask these people to sacrifice yet again, and we're cutting what? You know, it's like in World War II, like these people in the trenches, I'm sure one of the things that gave them like a little bit of warmth is the thought of home, like the music, the culture. It's why people are coming here. Like, everyone wants to come here now. Like, I moved before the pandemic and came back and I never saw so many Ontario plates in my life. It was wild. Like, what happened? You know, it's like the whole city got invaded.
1 minute, Jesse.
All right. Whatever. That's more about the mayor. I guess I can't talk about that here. Whatever. I digress. I mean, after so much sacrifice all these people have done, after 5, 6, 7 years, lockdowns, not being able to see their family for funerals, you know, their shoreline's like eroding, talking about digging up the center of the province, like, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. People just keep saying these words. I don't know what's going on. These big gray columns that keep going up, it looks more like property investment to me than a home for family, because I really believe that houses are for families, not investors. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. Like, why are we doing this? But, I mean, that's just my opinion. What the heck am I? You know, I just walked into, I got like a minute. After so much, anyway, I was going to do a prayer thing, but I think that's a little late. I just was kind of disturbed that I went to church for the first time in 20 years, and I don't know why. You know, and like, I was just feeling like, and they were talking about spring and renewal and redemption, and like, because Palm Sunday is coming up and everything. And I'm just like, why am I feeling like my father was saying, the noise is keeping him awake now in this whole city. It's keeping it louder, you know, in this province, you know. Like, I love it. I love the people. I love the music. You know, and just like all these people, it's like, if the job's so hard, you don't have to be here. Don't you people have money? Aren't you like rich people? Like, that's the whole thing. The premier is like stressed, or the mayor. Like, can't you all just like, you can go on vacation, right? Like, you guys still make more than like the average Nova Scotian does in a year. So like, what? You don't have to be here. It's like the whole point is you're a totem for everyone's frustrations. That's why they're mad at you all the time. Don't go like walking out into crowds of angry people. Like, I don't like everyone being angry. Like, I was supposed to go talk to the mayor thing, but I got there a day early, and there was no protest. I was like, that rocks. Because I don't like loud noises and be like, ah!
Okay, well, listen, thank you for being here, and I do appreciate your comments, and...
Think of everybody. try to be nice. So don't bring anger home with you.
Yep.
Try not to drink too much. And at the end of the day, you know, let's support the things that people want to come here to see.
All right. Thanks for your time this morning.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to head out.
Cheers.
Peanut butter.
All the best. All right, well, we're going to go back now to an online presenter, David Hirschman, if David is available.
Just going to confirm that they're there. We missed Samantha Bender. She
She canceled, yeah, sorry. Yeah, sorry. Not my, I should have mentioned that.
David's not there right now in the waiting room.
Okay.
So can we...
David Hirschman is not online at the moment, so we will come back. We'll give him another chance in a few minutes. But we'll go ahead and see if Sue McLeod here ready to speak. Well, come on up. Did you bring me an apple? All right, thank you. How do you wish to be referred to, and are you representing yourself or an organization?
Myself, Sue McLeod.
Sue, all right, Sue.
Sue is fine.
All right, Sue, welcome. And you're going to have up to 5 minutes to speak, and then we'll have some questions. So please start, and I'll let you know when you have a minute remaining.
And is this the right volume?
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, so thank you. My name is Sue McLeod. I'm a concerned citizen living in Halifax. Speaking on my own behalf, I am deeply worried about the environment, and I'm also a writer and a member of the arts community. The clauses I will address are 58, 62, 63, and 64. There are so many lenses one could use, and I'll be using the lens of right now. For each of these clauses, I urge this government to consider, is this what Nova Scotians need right now, at this dangerous and critical moment for humanity and the planet, and for our economy, and for democracy? I'll start with Clause 58. This one allows for a vehicle to be removed and impounded if it is found on provincial crown lands in violation of the Act or the regulations. It might sound like a random detail if you didn't know the context and what it says about the values that this bill supports. Previous speakers have called this clause out as an attempt to hinder protesters, including those on Hunter's Mountain, who stand up for Indigenous land rights and who stand against destructive resource extraction. Why is right now such a bad time for this clause? Environmental crisis, obviously. Resource extraction requires increasing skepticism and care and sound judgment, which is not what this government seems to be giving it. In the budget that is linked to this FMA, funding is cut from other sectors, closing tourist bureaus, for example, when tourism brings in $3.7 billion a year, to make way for an economy based on resource development instead. Uranium mining, fracking, which may not even happen, but if they do, will sicken our people and water and land. Clause 58 also raises concerns about the freedom to protest and speak out. This, again, is the last thing we need right now, when the U.S. is showing us how fragile democracy can be, and on the heels of other things we have seen from this Houston government, such as lack of consultation for this bill and budget, and attempts to sidestep the Auditor General. Do we want to go down Trump's road without him even needing to invade us? On to clauses 62 and 63, which exempt casinos and proposed casinos from having to pay deed transfer taxes. As a previous speaker noted, the deed transfer tax amount from the Halifax Casino, which is moving to Dartmouth, would be enough to fund the Artists in the Schools program, which has been completely axed. It's one thing to want to help a business, but is this what Nova Scotians need right now? Some of our tax revenue forsaken to help Great Canadian Entertainment, the Ontario-based chain that owns that casino. Tim Houston has talked about the tough decisions his government had to make when creating the budget that is linked to this bill. Surely context came into it. At this time of wild economic uncertainty, fear, and restraint, did our government wonder who needs our help most and decide Great Canadian Entertainment? I wish they had thought instead of Nova Scotia's vibrant publishing industry. Publishers all across Canada always need government support, and right now they are seeing huge losses in their American sales, in the range of 80% down. They are struggling. Nova Scotia's publishers could have used some extra help, but instead our government decided to completely cut its support to publishers at this very vulnerable time. Despite the jobs they provide and the value they give back to the economy, which is vastly more than the modest $700,000 that they will now lose, making us the only province to not support our publishers. On to Clause 64, which allows for the dissolution of the Halifax-Dartmouth Bridge Commission, the final step in a done deal. Many people's lives will be changed for the worst by a budget that eliminates or reduces 287 grants to arts, culture, and community initiatives.
1 minute.
Some people will leave Nova Scotia because of it. No one has ever left because of having to pay the bridge toll. The $36 million in annual revenue that was lost by removing that toll, if only it could be brought back, it would cover a good chunk of the budget cuts. And if the 1% HST decrease could be reversed, these two things together would cover the full amount. Again, was the government thinking of what Nova Scotians might need at this particular moment? When the bridge toll was removed, they already knew they were dealing with a deficit. Surely they knew this was the worst time to cut off a major source of revenue. Surely they knew that all of us would pay for it by losing what one protest sign, which I saw outside Province House, described as the things that make life worth living. I call on our government to act like responsible and caring leaders for our lives in these times, to reconsider these clauses and this whole FMA and the budget to which it is linked. Thank you for listening.
You were right on time. Thank you. Just for a point of clarification, I've done this a couple times today. The casino situation, there's been some miscommunications there that I've asked for us to rectify, but they are paying the D-transfer tax for their new property in Dartmouth. So I can assure you that that is the case. Now, we have some questions from MLAs, beginning with MLA Mumbercat, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And more of a comment, I appreciate your presentation, and you're right, and this has been talked about throughout the debate, that and the bridge tolls is an example. Whether you agreed or disagreed with the removal of the toll, it was a significant source of revenue, and the government knew they were in deficit, to your point, before removing that. And it's not just the money, it's the $300 million that went on the books immediately, and it is the millions that the government wrote off in the new technology that was supposed to be implemented in the Bridge Commission. The independence is gone, the governance is gone, and now they're going to have to figure out how to come up with the money. So I just wanted to say thank you. The big point I take from your presentation is that the government's plan for the future. There's projections, and you have to make decisions based on that. And these were political decisions, and that was a $35 to $40 million a year loss, which was a political decision.
I recognize Sue McLeod. Go ahead.
I believe the dissolution of the Bridge Commission, if there's any chance of ever, like in the future with a new bridge, bringing back any kind of toll structure, that just further ends that possibility, I'm sure.
I recognize MLA Wozni, please.
I thank you for your presentation. I very much take to heart that you recognize, the current government, your comments about how it's done its business. You recognize that they do, in fact, face challenging times. The world that they govern in is not an easy one to govern in, and the economic situation that they're looking at is not a simple one to fix. Nonetheless, the Financial Measures Act and the budget that enables, it clearly, in your opinion, doesn't reflect any due diligence to engage with community, to explore the question of what is it that's central to the public good, how do we safeguard that, and yet at the same time address the fiscal pressures of the province is facing as a province, as a community. How should a government facing tough fiscal times approach the question of making tough financial decisions so that the things that people value are protected in tough times?
I recognize Sue McLeod.
And I have how many seconds?
2 minutes.
Oh, okay. So I think one thing just to say that everything that I've mentioned, as we all know, it's all way worse because of the war now. And there'll be more struggles for anything to survive. And so I think at those times the government has to care for its most vulnerable and most treasured things first. I know it's complicated, and I think that consultation is absolutely a key part of it. Consultation and communication and appreciation for things that have already proven themselves, as opposed to aiming at something completely new that, regardless of how you feel about resource extraction, is not yet even proven as to how much benefit it would be economically.
I don't see any other questions, so thank you for visiting us this morning, for your comments.
Thank you very much.
In the room with us, we have Nathan Tuck. Nathan? Good morning and welcome. Did you ride this morning?
I did, yes. The only bike in the rack at Province House.
That's great. Welcome, as I say. Let us know how you want to be addressed and the organization that you're representing, then you'll have 5 minutes.
Thank you. I'm Nathan Tuck, representing Cycling Nova Scotia, the Cycling Nova Scotia board, staff and our members. And Nathan is fine for me.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. So firstly, thank you for the opportunity to speak to Bill 198, Financial Measures Act 2026. So I'm here today to raise concerns about the scale of cuts to active transportation and cycling that this Act will allow for, and to highlight how those cuts will affect all Nova Scotians. More specifically, Clause 62 and 63, exempting casinos from the de-transfer tax, Clause 64, paving the way for the dissolution of the Halifax-Dartmouth Bridge Commission, Clause 67, extending capital investment tax credits to 2035, which all appear to reduce public revenues, potentially being made up for by cuts to funding to not-for-profits, like Cycling Nova Scotia. The proposed cuts allowed for and linked to this Act reduce active transportation funding from approximately $6.26 million to $1.3 million, so an almost 80% reduction. For Cycling Nova Scotia in particular, this means the loss of $175,000 of provincial funding, the loss of 2 full-time staff members, myself included, and the cancellation or reduction of multiple programs, events and partnerships across the province. So these losses translate directly into services for communities that we won't be able to deliver, partnerships across the province that will be lost, and the loss of beneficial health, economic and environmental outcomes that come from our work. So this comes at the same time that Nova Scotia is investing in Link Nova Scotia, which has shown through public consultation that more active transportation options are clearly being called for by the public. Now, if you imagine a cyclist, I'm sure a picture comes to mind of someone on a road bike, clad in lycra, taking up room on the road. But in reality, anyone that gets on a bike is a cyclist, and cycling matters for all Nova Scotians. So firstly, there are health benefits. So like much of Canada, Nova Scotia is facing significant challenges with chronic disease and physical inactivity. At the moment, only about 15% of Canadians meet recommended activity guidelines, and physical inactivity costs the national economy $6.8 billion annually. People who walk or cycle for transportation can reduce their risk of chronic disease by 11%. Cycling is an accessible, effective and affordable way for Nova Scotians to improve their physical and mental health, and a lack of funding for active transportation and cycling programs doesn't eliminate costs, it simply shifts those costs to the health system. Secondly, there are economic impacts. So cycling isn't a niche activity, it's a growing economic sector in Nova Scotia. The cycling economy contributes an estimated $30 to $40 million with significant room to grow. It supports at least 25 bike shops, 6 touring companies, numerous local tourism operators and other local businesses. And participation is growing. Cycling Nova Scotia membership has grown 40% in the last 2 years alone. And importantly, every dollar invested, it leverages additional funding from federal programs and municipalities, as well as from private spending. A lack of funding risks shrinking a sector that is already delivering returns. Finally, there are impacts to transportation and affordability. So according to the Regional Transportation Plan, over 1.15 million driving trips happen every day in the Halifax region alone. Outside urban cores, there are limited alternatives to driving. So this is at the same time that 8.6% of Nova Scotians already rely on active transportation to commute, which is the highest and fastest growing share in Canada. So cycling provides a low-cost transportation option, greater access for youth, seniors and low-income households, and reduces pressure on roads and infrastructure. No one likes being stuck in traffic. Reducing investment now undermines affordability and mobility. This is another case of the cost not necessarily being saved, but shifted, possibly to the capital budget for road maintenance and construction. Bill 198 will allow for cuts to funding that directly impact programs such as the Blue Route Provincial Cycling Network, youth programs like Hop On, teaching cycling skills to kids, Women on Wheels and community participation initiatives, cycling tourism, promotion, local events, and bike-friendly certification programs for local businesses. These programs build skills, improve safety, increase participation, and support communities across the province, and once they're lost, they're difficult and extremely costly to rebuild. Cycling Nova Scotia asks committee members to recommend revising Bill 198 to allow for the reinstatement of active transportation and cycling funding, recognise cycling as essential infrastructure, not optional recreation, and commit to stable long-term investment in active transportation, like the release of the Provincial Active Transportation Plan. So this is not just about cycling, though I'm from Cycling Nova Scotia. It's about reducing healthcare costs. It's about supporting local economies, meeting climate commitments, and making life more affordable for Nova Scotians.
I'm going to stop you there, Nathan, so we'll have time for some questions. Three folks want to ask questions, beginning with MLA Mumbercat.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Nathan. It's more of a comment than a question, but I'm really glad that you're here because, look, we've heard a lot of different organizations that are being cut in the arts and culture, but I'm talking to folks at home who are involved with active transportation, the CBRM, Velo Cape Breton, other organizations, and these are the cuts that people don't hear as much. You just named a number of important programs that have been established in communities across the area that are all being cut. These are all a direct result of the government's budget, and I just want to say that I'm really glad you're here because you bring that perspective to this for sure, and you're letting people know that these cuts are vast, and we learn more about them every day, and we learn new ones every day. So thank you.
Recognize MLA Taggart next, please.
Thanks, Chair, and thank you very much for your presentation. I do agree that cycling is growing. I don't, so I live in rural, and but the amount of people that I see going through our community over the summers, with bikes on the back, it's a real kind of family activity for sure, and they're taking advantage of all the great trail, like off-road trails in particular, is what they do down home. But I'm curious about, I don't know anything about Cycling Nova Scotia, honestly don't. I apologize for that. But you indicated that you've lost $175,000 from your budget. What portion of your budget is that, and where do you get your other funding?
I recognize Nathan.
So I don't have the exact percentage, but I can say it's about 50% of the Cycling Nova Scotia budget. We currently receive funding from the Department of Energy, which is ongoing, hasn't been affected by these cuts. The rest of our funding comes from our membership model and from some of the events that we run, like the Great Annapolis Ride.
Thank you. I recognize MLA Wozni.
Thank you, Mr. Tuck, for your presentation. Sadly, cycling has become a political weapon in discourse. Everybody's favorite whipping post is bike lanes in Halifax. And this is a budget, sadly, that pits Nova Scotians against one another. And it's such, it would be easy for people to dismiss cycling as an urban concern. I'm wondering if you can talk about the economic, social, and health impacts of cycling, particularly for rural communities. At a time, people think cycling is just a big city problem. Why does eroding support for cycling in rural communities pose real problems for those rural communities?
I recognize Nathan with about 2 minutes left.
Thank you for the question. So some of our work, including the Core Active Transportation Network project, which I didn't list here, so we do have funding for that, works with rural communities. So at the moment we've got projects in Pugwash, Wamacook, New Glasgow, Windsor, region of Queens, where essentially we're trying to design core active transportation networks for members in these communities and giving access to active transportation infrastructure for rural Nova Scotians. A lot of these communities don't have any infrastructure at all. They're using shoulders on the roads where they're available. In a lot of cases, they're not available even then. Handmade trails, legacy trails, which are maintained by volunteer groups or unfortunately not maintained at all. So some of the points I raised, like the challenges with inactivity, that compounds when there's no access or no easy access to the infrastructure you need to cycle or even to walk. So as I said, this isn't just about cycling, it's about active transportation. Not having access to those trails and not having access to programs like Women on Wheels, Hop On, or receiving any promotional material or tourism information from Cycling Nova Scotia also means there's no awareness of cycling as an option for a healthy alternative to driving or for recreation for that matter as well. So there are significant impacts for rural communities.
MLA Wozni with 30 seconds.
Just wondering if you can comment on ties to tourism and economic benefit of cycling in rural Nova Scotia.
Recognize Nathan.
Yep. So we are actually just waiting for results from the Voice of the Visitor survey conducted by Tourism Nova Scotia. So hopefully we would be able to provide more information. But we currently provide where to cycle in Nova Scotia books, maps, other information to Nova Scotians and individuals from abroad, including overseas, that are interested in cycling in the province. I don't have any information on economic impacts for that, but I can say we provide information to hundreds of individuals that are interested in travelling to Nova Scotia for cycling.
Thank you for being here. Appreciate your input.
Thank you so much.
All right, next we have appearing in person, Sebastian Labelle. We'll just take a second for those to be distributed. Data, documents.
Good. How are you? Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, good morning and welcome. And let me know how you would like to be addressed by me and let me know the organization you represent, and then you'll have 5 minutes.
ici Sébastien Labelle. Bonjour, mon nom est Sébastien Labelle. Mes pronoms préférés sont il et lui. Je suis directeur artistique de Mayworks Jibuktuk Halifax. I'm the artistic director of Mayworks Jibuktuk Halifax, the Festival of Working People in the Arts. I'm an actor and a dancer, a father. I'm a resident of the Bunamugwadij area, which, as it happens, was the site of important battles in the Father Le Loutre Wars, known to the English as the French-Indian War, where Acadians and Mi'kmaq allied themselves to push back against treaty-breaking settlements that later became Dartmouth.
Do you want to be known as Sebastian, addressed as Sebastian?
Oui, je suis francophone en milieu minoritaire. I'm a francophone in a minority context where the only opportunities for myself and my children to engage in the French language outside of schools is through arts and culture.
Okay, you have 5 minutes.
Before my time begins, I'd like to ask Mr. Chair if I could have a point of information.
I'm not sure that's normal, but what's your...
Well, I have a question with respect to the function of these proceedings in relation to communications I've received from the Government of Nova Scotia.
Okay, can you be a little more specific?
Yeah, I'd love to do that. So I've passed around a document. The first page there is a news release issued by the Government of Nova Scotia, issued on February 25th. to announce that the Finance Minister had introduced the Financial Measures Act on that same day. The news release contains very little information, but provides a long bullet point list of legislative amendments. But prior to that, the statement or the release simply states, legislative amendments are needed to enact Budget 2026-27 Defending Nova Scotia, and then the list is given.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, so my question is, given the attempt to have a vote to enact the budget last night through the Appropriations Act, when in fact Bill 198, which is said to be needed as a prerequisite to the enactment of the budget, as per the government's own communication to the public, and has not been voted on. Not only that, but these public bills proceedings where input is supposedly sought from the public before adoption of the piece of legislation has not even come close to concluding. So my question is the vote or attempted vote from last night presuppose the adoption of Bill 198 as is? And therefore, does the government or has the government predetermined the outcome of these proceedings regardless of what is said here? Does the attempted vote last night not logically signal the absent possibility of making change?
Okay, let me answer the question. So the budget last night is separate from this. I mean, they're related and they enable, but this does not keep us if we had passed the budget last night, we'd still be meeting here today to be talking about 198. So I'm going to start your time now, and I'm anxious to hear what you have to say for the next 5 minutes.
All right. Well, despite the fact that the legitimacy of this process is put into question by the government's attempted vote on the budget last night, and also because it's been widely reported by first-hand accounts across sectors that no consultation was made prior to crafting this bill or what it enables, the budget, as stated by the government's press release, I'll nonetheless take the opportunity to speak here in the hopes that the government members will choose to do the right thing, because despite it all, I do have hope for the goodness in their hearts. In defending the budget that this act is said to enable, the Minister of Finance and the Premier have both stated that their focus is on revenue generation to tackle the deficit and on focusing on investments toward core services. However, the public statements are not congruent with what is contained in this bill. Let's start with revenue generation. The bill includes provisions for the loss of revenue streams, such as the elimination of bridge tolls, and although you've provided clarification around the transfer deed tax or the casino, where the bill does look for revenues through levies on electric vehicles and the taxation of land not used for forestry. It's also been discussed by previous presenters how many clauses of the bill are intended to enable speculative mining and gas extraction activity, the key word here being speculative. Now, had the government taken the time to consult with economic sectors in this province, those of us in the arts, culture, and heritage sector could have informed the government of the following facts, reported only last year by the Canadian Chamber of Commerce regarding revenue generation here in Nova Scotia. The Canadian Chamber of Commerce, following extensive economic study, states that, and I've included those in the package, the arts and culture sector supports more jobs than oil and gas, forestry, fisheries, or agriculture. Arts and culture in Atlantic provinces have the highest jobs multipliers, 16 jobs per $1 million in output, compared to the national average of 13 jobs. Nova Scotia's arts and culture sector is the largest out of Atlantic provinces, contributing $2.6 billion in GDP and supporting 22,000 jobs, 53% of those in rural areas, the only place in the country where rural jobs in the sector outnumber urban jobs. Since 2011, that's a decade and a half ago, the sector has outpaced growth in key industries, including oil and gas, wholesale trade, retail trade, construction, and manufacturing. The sector generated $331 million in provincial tax revenue in 2024. Now compare that to the $66 million in investment the government prides itself on. Tax revenue amounts to almost $5 return for every dollar invested. There's no speculation about the arts and culture sector. They might set up an office here, or in a number of years, we'll start seeing some job creation, maybe. We are up and running. We're here, we're renewable, sustainable GDP dynamo. We're job creators across every corner of this province, actually attracting people to those corners. And what we generate, by and large, stays here to support our communities. It doesn't line the pockets of foreign corporate shareholders and CEOs or consultants, or those aspiring to be once their current gig is up. If this is the powerful impact of the arts, culture, and heritage with the measly investments we have here in this province through government and what government thinks that we should be proud of, And by the way, the $66 million makes us third to last across Canadian provinces and territories in arts investment per capita. Third to last. So imagine if our government inspired to be the best. Then imagine what we could do together. Imagine that. All that revenue going towards job creation and helping people be able to afford a roof over their heads and addressing the housing crisis. All that revenue going to not only support our healthcare system, but also to reduce the pressure on the system through the demonstrative positive impacts of arts and culture on both physical and mental health. Investment in the arts is not only good for healthcare, it's a double whammy for healthcare by generating revenue to help fund it on the one hand, and also reducing the demand by improving health in our communities on top of that. The Premier has made a point of repeating how much he appreciates artists. I would like to ask this government to show their appreciation towards the arts and culture sector by not taking us for idiots. I'll do the same by giving you the benefit of the doubt that you can take to heart what is being said through these public bills and proceedings and do what's right for Nova Scotia. As the song goes, it's okay to change your mind.
Thank you for your comments, and I think we're going to start with MLA Wozni, please.
Merci, Monsieur Labelle. Sorry, I'm not fluent enough to converse with you en français. Nonetheless, is it your contention that one of the shortcomings of the FMA and the budget it enables is that it cuts the legs out from a sector that is a net substantial revenue generator for the province at a time the Premier and other senior members of Cabinet indicate that we need to grow revenue, and the project of growing revenue at the same time that we destabilize a sector that delivers incredible return on public sector investment runs counter to the project of closing our deficit gap.
Recognize Mr. LaBelle.
Yes, that's exactly correct. If the focus is on revenue generation, then, well, on the one hand, addressing the deficit, the arts funding represents 0.08% of the overall budget. So the arts spending is not an issue. But in fact, it's clearly demonstrated by the Chamber of Commerce, the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, that investments in the arts are a revenue generator. One of the most dynamic revenue generators in Canada and in Nova Scotia. So why are we not investing to generate more revenue in our province, in our communities, rather than cutting the legs from under us?
Oh, okay. MLA Wozni.
So, given the fact that an investment in the arts generates a guaranteed return, by the sounds of things, I'm not an investment banker, but a return of $16 per dollar spent, up to $30+ per dollar invested. I would be sprinting to my private investment counselor if I knew I could get that kind of return on an investment. Where could the province be directing additional investment in the arts that would generate additional multiplied returns to help grow revenues that would actually make a dent in the deficit?
Mr. LaBelle.
Well, I think, there's not one location, as has been evident through talking about the impact of these cuts, is how interconnected the ecology of the arts, culture, and heritage sector is, and its important role within the larger, or within the tourism industry, and its connection to cultural commercial industries like film and gaming, which are also important economic drivers. But a lot of people in those commercial sectors depend on the ecosystem at the not-for-profit arts, culture, and heritage sector. And so it's really, it's investment across the board that create these multiplier effects. Certainly operating support for organizations to keep ongoing operations, but also project grants that help bolster new risk-taking initiatives, but also programs like Artists in Communities and Artists in Schools that ensure that we're continuing to grow new generations of artists and new generations of people who appreciate the arts. And so there's not one single, I mean, of course, programs that are equity focused to make sure that everybody's voice and everybody's community is represented in our cultural sector. One of the important impacts of arts and culture, which is being more clearly demonstrated by studies now, is its positive impact on social cohesion. We see what's going on down south with the breakdown of social cohesion, and so investment in the arts is really important because it helps us understand who we are, what makes us us. And the broader and more diverse the arts and culture sector makes us understand, it makes even more diverse our understanding of what makes us us and not them.
MLA Wozni with 1 minute.
Finally, I'm wondering if you might comment on, there's an assumption that the arts are an urban concern. And that the economic benefits of the arts are reserved for urban elites. I'm wondering if you can talk about the opportunity that's before this government to make sure that arts in rural areas remain lifeline economic drivers in communities that are struggling.
Yeah.
Mr. LaBelle with about half a minute.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I as an urban artist myself, I also had that preconceived notion that a lot of the arts sector kind of happened in the urban area. But as the Chamber of Commerce study demonstrates, here in Nova Scotia is actually an exception where 53% of employment in the arts and culture sector is actually in rural areas. So that's huge. And we're seeing from the response across the province what these impacts have on rural communities. So it's a real missed opportunity for caring and helping economic growth in our rural communities.
Perfect timing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
All right, our next witness is going to be online, and that is Mr. Alan Lynch. Mr. Lynch, can you hear me? Or Alan, can you hear me? There we go. Alan, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Alan? Alan, can you hear me? I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, welcome. Is it okay if I call you Alan, or how do you wish to be addressed?
Yes, please. And I'd love to find out how to get my photo on here. We'll see. I'll click another thing. No, that's not doing it. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay. Glad to hear from you, and you have up to 5 minutes. Are you representing yourself or an organization?
No.
There you are.
Okay. Good. My name is Alan Lynch. I'm an individual. Earlier in my career, I was a community newspaper publisher in Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. Through my writings, I created the Nova Scotia Health Authority. And I'm speaking about the Appropriation Bill 198.
All right, I'm going to let you start now. I'm going to start your time, and I'll let you know when you have a minute left. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so the appropriations of Bill 198 seem to embrace reductions and abandon revenues, or for my reading of it. Former New Brunswick Premier Frank McKenna once told me that whatever you do in government, people say you should be spending your money on healthcare and education. But he said you have to invest in things that create wealth so that you have money to tax to pay for healthcare and education. And to me, these appropriations seem to contract economic activity. Arts and culture are very much an industry. And ask yourself, where would the economy of Prince Edward Island be without Anne of Green Gables? Longfellow's Evangeline has had major economic importance and continues in tourism in southwest Nova Scotia. The Grand Pré National Historic Site would not exist if not for Wolfville author John Frederick Herbin. And then you have Thomas Chandler Halliburton's house, Clifton in Windsor. So we have a rich literary heritage. But we don't look at the economic importance and contribution of museums. Prescott House, which is being closed, I know that they create traffic for the Planters Barracks, which is an inn dating back to the 1770s, 2 honey stands, 2 wineries, 2 antique shops, a pastry shop, a pizza place, 3 restaurants, 2 craft breweries, and a craft distillery, all in Port Williams. They benefit from Prescott House. And arts and culture are extremely labor intensive. As an author, I'm the face of a book, but behind me, there's a whole crew. There's the publisher, the editor, the designer, the marketing team, the sales team, the press crew, the transportation, and the retailers. There are about 25 people involved in getting a book onto a shelf. And when I look at the playbill from Two Planks and a Passion Theater, I see 8 actors, I see 12 people behind the scenes in production. Those are directors, technical people, the wardrobe, all of that. And then you get to the front of house people, ticket sales and concessions and things like that. The other consideration about the arts and culture is how critical they are in attracting and retaining professionals, doctors, nurses, high-tech people. These people have choices. They could be anywhere in the world they want, but you know, they've come to Nova Scotia, and why would they come to a place with high taxation? It's for the lifestyle, and the lifestyle involves the arts and culture. And interestingly, the Nova Scotia Health Authority recruitment is built around the concept of work-life balance. And I've already seen the collateral damage of these appropriations. I recently had a small procedure at Valley Regional Hospital. One nurse was furious that she was being charged $500 for having an EV. And so she's already been in talks with the hospital in Mississauga about moving. The other nurse, her boyfriend's funding has been cut. He's leaving the province. She's going with him. So, you know, there's 2 out of the 3 people in the room who are leaving the province because of this, and we need them. The appropriations seem disproportionately weighted against rural Nova Scotia, and thereby are depriving rural residents and their families access to the arts. That doesn't do that to city residents. 198 is probably the most divisive document that we have ever had in our history, which is why people have taken to the streets in Yarmouth, Amherst, Sydney, Shelburne, Annapolis Royal, Liverpool, Wolfville, and Halifax. I think if we rethought the 1% tax cut, that would be significant. It's insignificant to individuals, but it means a lot to government. That 1% would pay the budgets of fisheries and aquaculture, energy, agriculture, and natural resources, plus give you a month's debt servicing. Passing 198 as it is leaves the landscape of empty offices and closed museums showing people what they've lost and what was taken away from them. Thank you.
Thank you. We have questions from MLAs. Oh, MLA Mumbercat first.
Thank you for your presentation. I represent one of the communities that is losing a museum. Cosset House in Sydney is on the block to be closed, and you know a family house that was established in the 1700s, located in the heart of the North End of the Heritage District of Sydney. It's one of the first places where cruise ship passengers come to visit. So they literally come off of the ship and they come through the port and up the hill they go and away you go. You're in the historic part of Sydney. So I do know it also draws people to a number of restaurants that are downtown and a local brewery too as well. And I think it's really short-sighted because I said this before, the government has used the argument, well, there's only been so many visitors that have gone to these places, that's why they're closing them. But ultimately, it shouldn't be measured on that alone because these are rural, well, Sydney's not as rural, obviously, we're a city, but these museums really matter in these rural communities, and I think the government has really been short-sighted because they do impact a lot of local businesses as well. So I just want to say thank you for presenting and providing feedback.
Mr. Lynch, do you want to respond to the non-question or any comment?
I do, thank you. I always have an opinion. As for the guidebooks, most people don't sign the guest books. I go to the museum like Prescott House 5 or 6 times a year for ongoing research. And so I don't sign each time that I go there. I feel that's sort of cheating. I see a lot of people who don't sign, or one person will sign for the car. The Prescott House does 5 or 6 garden parties a year, so you have like 100 people in the yard. They don't come inside and sign all of the guest books. So, you know, that's deceptive. The other thing is we don't know who these people are that signed the book. So because I don't mean to sound snobbish, but people who go to museums tend to have a little more time and a little more money and spend more time in the area. But they also are, you know, cheap entertainment for children. When I was a child, my father made sure that I knew the history of where I came from. And it's ironic that we are cutting out our history and heritage at a time when Canada is finding and presenting its voice to the world.
MLA Wilson's next.
Mr. Lynch, thank you for taking your time today. One of the things we've been hearing from this government is we don't need the Visitors Information Center because people can just find all the information they need online. I would question that, but since you're in the heart of, it sounds like, also familiar with tourism in southwestern Nova Scotia and understand the communication world and the impact of museums, what are your thoughts on that statement that we don't need the information centers because people can just find what they need online?
Mr. Lynch, please.
You know, we used to say we didn't need the Yarmouth ferry because, you know, most people fly today, but we found out that the people who came on the ferry spent more money than the people who flew. You don't know, well, actually, we do know certain things. 80% of the workforce are millennials, but 80% of the wealth are held by baby boomers. Baby boomers created the internet, but we still like paper. We still like people. We still like to go in and chat with people and have somebody help us out. And, you know, the other thing is that they also provide public washrooms in many places where they don't have them. There are a lot of reasons to have them. If tourist offices didn't work, they wouldn't have them in London and Paris and other such places.
All right, thank you, Mr. Lynch. Do we have time? Would you like to follow up? Sure, go ahead. MLA Whistler.
2 quick questions. Since you sound like you're actively involved in many communities, are you aware of any consultation with any community groups and museums or other in your region by the government prior to this budget? And secondly, this is a big question, maybe we'll have to talk offline, is what do you see as the impact of these cuts and if they remain as they are?
Mr. Lynch, you have 1 minute to answer all that.
No consultation and catastrophic in the long run. You know, we don't appreciate what we have. We have so much history here that we've taken it for granted, and we don't realize what a treasure trove and a gem house that we are. We have more museums per capita than the Netherlands. I know this. I wrote a guidebook to the museums of Nova Scotia. And we haven't really promoted them properly. People think of them as static warehouses of old furniture. They don't understand the ongoing research and scholarship that takes place and what community hubs they are.
Thank you, Mr. Lynch. I appreciate your contributions today. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Next on our list, we have Matthew Lumley. Is Matthew Lumley here? There we go. Good morning, welcome.
Good morning, hi.
How would you like me to address you?
Matthew Lumley would be great. Matthew's great.
All right, Matthew's great. And you're representing yourself for an organization?
I mean, I'm a proud dues-paying member of ACTRA and the Canadian Actors Equity Association, but they may distance themselves from my comments. I don't know. I'm here as an individual.
Well, you're intriguing me now. Okay, you'll have up to 5 minutes, and I'll give you a minute's warning. So you go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all for the opportunity to speak. So the Financial Measures Act is the legislative mechanism used to enact the budget, and I know it's the actual budget that compels me here, but per your instructions, I'll start with the act. And with the Halifax bridges. Last year through the FMA, government removed bridge tolls and changed the Bridge Commission into a Crown corporation. This year it's dissolving it completely. And this decision to absorb and dissolve by your own records produced a $300 million increase in provincial debt, including $157 million in commission debt forgiven by the province. Gone, like that. Paid by us. I'm a taxpayer too. I'll put that as my identity as well, a taxpayer. That's a big financial choice. And this committee, as I understand it, is here to test those choices, to examine whether they're made with consultation, transparency, and responsibility, or whether they're increasingly made unilaterally from the center. Because the public record raises that concern. If we back up to 2024, after the Premier campaigned for 6 weeks with a promise to remove the tolls, the Bridge Commission remarkably said it had no update to share. Not we're working through a process, not we're in discussions. What they said was more information is not expected until the new year. That's a strange comment with such a big change planned. It does not sound like an open, careful fiscal process. It looks like a decision made first when its consequences were unknown. And that's why I'm here, really, to put a simple question on the record for the government members of the committee. Before the Premier announced the decision to remove bridge tolls, did any minister, political staff member, deputy minister, senior government official consult with senior Halifax Harbour Bridges staff about the implications of doing it? Did anyone have an idea that we'd transfer roughly $300 million in debt onto the public purse? If the answer is yes, I'd gratefully ask that you provide who was consulted and when, and I'd ask that you put that information on the record. And if the answer is no, I'd say this committee might consider that a problem with how this government now makes very big financial decisions. Because, you know, maybe you guessed, I'm not just, it's not just about the bridge. For me, it's also about work. I'm an independent artist, and just this spring, working on 4 separate projects, all of them relying on provincial grants to pay people working on the projects, including me, all of them from programs that have been cut by 30%. So I'm one of the thousands of workers just wondering, how did you make that decision? Because I honestly don't know. Because this party came to power promising to repair the damage caused by the abrupt dismantling of the film tax credit, a decision we all know that shrank a growing industry, pushed workers west, signaled to the world that Nova Scotia was an unreliable partner. This current government positioned itself as a corrective solution, one that understood cutting high-return cultural sectors is short-sighted economics. Mr. Hewson, in the legislature in 2015, accused the previous government as seeing the sector as, quote, being a drain on the economy, measured not by wealth creation and employment, but by government expenditures. Yet here we are, watching a government repeat the same mistake it once weaponized as a political lesson.
1 minute.
Thank you. As previous witnesses have testified, the numbers show art spending is one of the best investments government can make, but we don't need to cite them. The Premier already made the argument in the legislature. When theaters program fewer shows, when festivals scale back, when tours skip Nova Scotia, it's not the artists alone who feel it. It's servers, line cooks, hotel cleaners, brewers, and the thousands of small businesses whose margins depend on people going out. And the Premier understood that cutting a sector that stimulates GDP growth is not a solution to debt. It's a math error, and a pretty bad one. And this is the inconsistency I want this committee to confront. The Premier heard us in the streets in 2015, but for some reason not in 2026. Why is that? Is he not listening anymore? Has he stopped consulting? So I'll end where I began with this question that I hope will shed some light on how major financial decisions are now being made in this province. Did anyone in government consult senior Halifax Harbour Bridges staff before shifting $300 million in debt to the public purse? Yes or no? Did staff, did ministers, did the Premier? If yes, who and when? And if no, why not?
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
First question is from MLA Mumberget.
Thank you, and more of a comment than a question.
There's a surprise.
I'd rather have a conversation. So thanks for being here. This has been a huge conversation, the bridge tolls. You're right, it's $300 million on the books. We argued that I don't know where the consultation came, but this is something the Auditor General has talked about as well. And what people are not realizing too, and I'm just trying to confirm the number, there was millions of dollars invested in new tech for the bridge tolls to be implemented, which was planned to be implemented. It was in the millions and millions. And then this government all of a sudden made the decision to remove the tolls, and all of that had to be written off. So that's the other side of this too, that people aren't hearing as much about. Huge issue on the debt, write-off of millions of dollars, and it's just something nobody asked for. So I appreciate you talking about it. I also appreciate your background in coming here and presenting before the committee.
MLA Wozni next.
Mr. Lumley, thank you for your presentation today. And I also appreciate that you have looked at this government and sort of key figures in it and where they've stood on the issue of funding the arts at various points in its political history. That's good context for Nova Scotians, and I appreciate the balance that you brought. You said in your remarks that you acknowledge, I'm reading from your written submission, it says, government can make big financial choices. You recognize that it is the job of government to make decisions about the finances of the province and the impacts that those choices have on Nova Scotians. I take from the rest of your remarks, though, your question isn't whether or not the government has the scope to do this, but you question its approach to taking those decisions. There's one final vote left on the Appropriations Act, one of the two pieces of enabling legislation, which will presumably happen later today. There are presumably 3 votes left on the Financial Measures Act, which could be concluded as early as Monday. Given that this government has failed to provide anything approaching a sound business case for the Financial Measures Act or the budget, and how quickly this budget could become law, how do you recommend the government proceed in pausing and taking additional time to meet with Nova Scotians when the budget before us clearly has demonstrable harms for many people in our province?
Recognize Matthew with approximately 2 minutes left.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, that's beautiful how you put it. There's no partisanship here. At various times we, as an artist, it's always a partnership with government. Independent artists, we subsidize our own careers, many of us, by doing all kinds of different things. And, we look for that partnership. And, all the parties around this room at various times have really recognized, the economic argument is very clear. Sebastian cited it, and I know other witnesses have cited it. And the Premier himself, he really argued it compellingly in the legislature. So really, all I'm asking is for a sober pause, because, I think there are compelling arguments on the loss of the cultural wound to Nova Scotia when we cut back on the arts. But from a purely fiscal lens, if we look at it that way, and, having to make constraints and having to spur the economy on, I feel like I'm looking at people who are all potential partners in getting this right and improving it. And I think all it takes is a pause to let's look at the numbers and, the basic multiplier effects of investment in the arts it's too compelling to make a cut like this. It's bigger than a cut to the arts. It's a reduction in our ability as an economy to generate jobs, to create wealth. And, for me, the most compelling statistic is there's a 2017 study in the UK that showed that the reason why people stay in a place, number one was education and healthcare were sort of up there, but 44% of residents, like why they choose to live someplace, right? And we know this is like, so they have access to arts and culture because it improves our quality of life. And, you know, in a province that's so focused on population, because we need that tax base, I just implore you to pause for a moment and think, you know, are we doing the right thing by doing such a massive cut to
I'm going to have to stop you there. Gave you a little extra time, but thank you very much for your comments and for being here.
Thanks so much for your question.
My mic on. This will be the final one before our break, and it is online, and it's Karen Beasley. Dr. Karen. I can see you, Karen. Can you see us and hear us?
Yes, I can see you and hear you.
Nice to see you again. Welcome.
Well.
How would you like me to refer to you and us? To refer to you?
Karen is fine.
Karen is fine, okay. And you're representing yourself?
I am.
All right, and you have up to 5 minutes, and I'll give you a minute's warning when you're getting near the end.
Thank you very much.
There you go.
I have notes, so I'll look at those.
Thank you.
Yeah. So my name is Karen Beasley, as you know, and I have 50 years experience in resource and environment. I live in Windsor, West Hants. My first concern is with the complexity of this bill. It is difficult to understand how the 137 clauses interact with the 21 acts in practice. There is insufficient time for questions and debate, and there is no evidence of discussions with the affected communities or the Mi'kmaq. So in addition to my concerns with the whole, I have concerns with many of the parts. So I'll speak to a few of them as the time allows. Clauses 52 and 54 introduce uncertainties and risks to the long-term persistence of community and conservation easements. Others have spoken eloquently to how these clauses weaken these acts. I too register my deep concern. I chaired for more than 15 years the Nova Scotia Crown Share Land Legacy Trust, responsible for $23.4 million in matching funds for land trusts to protect ecologically significant private lands in ways
European history.
That contribute to the province's protected area targets. This highly successful program leveraged many times its value through conservation easements meant to remain in place in perpetuity. These lands will be affected by these clauses. They provide substantial public good through ecosystem services, biodiversity conservation, and climate amelioration. I urge that these clauses be removed from the bill. Clauses 56 and 96 amend the Crown Lands and the Mineral Resources Acts to allow the minister to grant or renew timber and resource licenses for a period of up to 5 years or 10 years with governor and council approval. These clauses increase the power and discretion of the minister and the governor and council. They risk exclusion of other important values, departmental input, community engagement, and Mi'kmaq consultation. They shorten time frames, which could result in more frequent harvests and extraction cycles that may not be ecologically sustainable. How will the decisions and their impacts be overseen and monitored? Clause 93 amends the Mineral Resources Act to provide that gypsum on Crown land is vested in the Crown, who has the right to explore, mine, and produce it. Further, no person has a right to claim damages or compensation for expropriation or injurious affection. As someone who lives in an area underlined by gypsum, I am concerned with what these changes may mean. Why is there a need for these changes? Is the province looking to obtain more Crown land in gypsum-laden regions by expropriation? Are the clauses intended to help conserve lands underlain by gypsum? If so, I'm all for that, as gypsum karst is the rarest and most threatened ecosystem in the world. Or do the clauses facilitate the fast-tracking of hydraulic fracturing and uranium exploration and mining? Both are associated with gypsum. Both would cause people to want to seek damages or compensation given the associated risks. Clause 60 amends the Forest Act with respect to forest property being used in a commercial carbon sequestration transaction. What is the intention or rationale? It is seemingly for increased taxes. This is a distinct disincentive for landowners who conserve their forests for a greater public good. These forests address climate change, contribute to the ecological forestry component of the forest management triad, and many values other than timber harvest. How are these other values accounted for? Who does this clause benefit and who does it harm? Clause 106 permits the minister to establish fees for any license, permit, lease, or use in a provincial park. What is the intention here? Are parks expected to pay for themselves? Arguably, they already are with ecosystem services and other amenities that are not factored into the economic equation. Are the parks intended to be opened for more uses, such as golf courses? These clauses weaken the Parks Act. Instead, it should be strengthened to prohibit such uses in parks. Further, clauses 58 and 107 permit vehicles found on Crown land or provincial park to be removed and impounded. Are these simply to keep them from being used as parking lots? Or, coming on the heels of previous legislation, are these further punitive measures to punish land protectors? Finally, Clause 110 adds a levy on electric and hybrid vehicles. This creates a disincentive and is punitive for those trying to do their part for the environment. A more equitable approach would be to increase levies on heavier trucks. EVs already pay extra sales taxes on electricity use in their initial higher purchase price. Given the benefits of these vehicles, the clause is penny-wise and pound-foolish. There are more values to consider.
Karen, our time is up. I want to save time for some questions, so sorry to interrupt you, but we're going to have some questions now, beginning with MLA Wozni. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Beasley. You are a professor emerita in the School for Resource and Environmental Studies at Dalhousie University. You can give me a nod if I'm accurate. So you have a lifetime of expertise, both as a professor, but also as a practitioner of research, particularly in the area of protected area system planning. I'm wondering if you can comment on what appears to be an unchecked scope of powers legally for the government to expropriate property for the purposes of gypsum extraction, and what kind of harms derive from the limitless or boundless ability of a government to seize privately owned lands, execute resource extraction that would effectively degrade the land and leave people without the opportunity to seek recompense in any way, shape, or form.
Over to you, Karen.
That's a huge and wonderful question. Used to 3-hour lecture periods. So one benefit could be that if the government was keen to implement their protected areas strategy and add a lot of gypsum laden lands and crown lands, that would be a great public good for maintaining biological diversity, addressing climate change, preserving species at risk, and all kinds of other amenities and ecosystem services that are quite invaluable, but really highly valued if you do full cost accounting or ecological economics. On the other hand, if the intent, or this could also be used, these discretionary powers could also be used by the minister to fast track explorations for minerals or fast track timber harvesting, which could cause great environmental harm, but also public health harms because of even damages associated with exploring for minerals such as uranium or hydraulic fracturing that reduce radon into the air and also create other long-lasting radioactive particles that are very easily transmitted in air and water. So significant adverse effects, not just for the loss of the land use, but for significant, almost in perpetuity, long-term health harms to those that are nearby, and also wide-ranging, such as up to 400 kilometers away, some of these impacts. So, when you think about these huge diversity in the goods and the bads associated with such discretionary powers, it really entails more checks and balances, more opportunities for consultation with the Mi'kmaq, with local and, province-wide citizen public input, greater input by scientists and others who really understand all the implications and feedbacks.
All right. Thank you, Karen. And follow-up from MLA Wozni.
Thank you, Dr. Beasley. Just the last piece I'm really interested in. The FMA gives the government powers to seize lands outside of the limitations on its powers of expropriation under the existing Expropriation Act. Given that most of these lands are going to be in rural Nova Scotia, what, in your experience, is the economic impact or the economic harm of governments being able to seize lands like this in rural areas where the landowners are left without financial recompense?
Over to Karen with 30 seconds, but I might give you 32.
Okay, well, in rural areas, there's a lot of dependence on the land for livelihood and just for lifestyle. It's in our blood. And so the recourse of what someone can do other than what they had in their hopes and plans and legacy within their lands is being taken away from people. There's great concerns there. People are deeply tied and embedded to the land, and it really does support rural economies.
Thank you very much for joining us today, Karen. And one of my daughters is a graduate of your program. She's doing research in Yellowknife. So I'll say hi. Thank you for being here today, though. Cheers.
My pleasure.
All right. We are going to adjourn to 3 p.m. Then we'll be back here at 3 p.m. We stand adjourned.